Good evening. I'm happy to welcome all of my fellow board members and call the February 9, 2021 school board meeting to order. Pam, roll call, please.
Mrs. Belford?
Present.
Ms. McDougall?
Present.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Present.
Mrs. Campbell?
Present.
And Mr. Susan?
Present.
We will now hold a moment of silent reflection in memory of one of our BPS family members who recently passed away, Layla Monk, a 9th grade student from Satellite High School. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. At this time, I would like to offer my fellow board members and Dr. Mullins the opportunity to recognize students, staff, or members of our community who would like to kick us off this evening. Ms. McDougall.
Okay, first I want to give a shout out to the Teacher of the Year who happens to be at Cocoa High School, Miss Hebert. Congratulations. Then I want to give a shout out to the Employee of the Year, which happens to be at Gulfview, another one of my schools, Mr. Tazwell. And I want to round out with the Administrator of the Year, which, oh my goodness, is at one of my schools too. That is Principal Reed at Endeavor Elementary. So congratulations to those three. I really want to give a shout out to them. I also want to give a shout out to the JROTC at Cocoa Beach Junior Senior High School. They have this competition. It's a team competition. They have a ladies team and a boys team, and then they have mixed. And when I heard what they had to do, I was blown away. Let me read you what they have to do. They have to construct, the team constructs a rope bridge. They have a 5K run. They flip a tire that weighs 300 pounds, 50 meters. They do a sprint. They drag, carry, and cross-country rescue, where they carry 35 pounds ruckus, and then they carry 100 pounds leader for a mile. Just so you know, the ladies place first. The boys reclaim. Now, the ladies have placed first for 4 years running. The boys team reclaimed their first title. Typically, they would go to the state for the state championships, but of course, it's canceled for COVID. And their mixed team, they came on second. But I just want to say, what a phenomenal bunch of students, athletes, to be able to, I can't imagine flipping a tire. But anyhow, I'm just so impressed with these two teams, so congratulations to them. And then, again, I'm blaming Mr. Susan on this one. I'm going through the, we have some great athletes here. So we have Merritt Island Player of the Year, Marcy Reynolds, who's a junior, and she's a volleyball Player of the Year for Florida today. Rockledge has Elliot Weissel. He is a sophomore, and he is a swimming of the year, swimmer of the year. Then I have another, I should probably have my glasses on. Rockledge High, a junior. This will be Sarah Gonzalez, and she, again, is the girls' all-space coast champion for swimming. And then I have not last but not least, but close to last, Gabe Montague, who is at Satellite for the award for the area cross-country boys of the year. So congratulations to all those athletes. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Jamal Dean, number 35 of the Buccaneers, who went to Cocoa High School. So congratulations to Mr. Dean also for a game well played. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Ms. Campbell or Ms. Jenkins, you want to?
So first and foremost, I want to say congratulations to Laura Penfield. She won the Florida Music Theater of the Year Outstanding Merit in Music Teacher Award. She is one of our itinerant strings teachers, and she is serving 8 of our schools in the district. I know one of them that is primarily West Shore. So congratulations to you. I also want to say a shout out and a thank you to Brevard Schools Foundation, not only for the ABC Awards that you put together, but also for the distribution that you organized for our Literacy Week. I believe they distributed about 40,000 books to our Title I schools, as well as some masks and hand sanitizers. So thank you to them. You won't hear me talk about sports very much, but I just want to give a shout out to the NFL. I was forced to watch the Super Bowl, and I really appreciated that they acknowledged frontline workers, and they had a teacher out there on the field, and I thought that was really awesome of them to acknowledge that we are out there on the front line. So thank you to that. And last but not least, I enjoyed a visit to Palm Bay High School, and I took a really amazing tour of that school and was introduced to their gopher market that I wasn't aware of. It's a student-led and student-run market for their fellow students on campus to access food and clothes and other resources that they may need to take home. It is funded as a class, which is fantastic. And I had the opportunity to be introduced to that by a student. I unfortunately didn't get her name, so I apologize. But she was so fantastic introducing me to that program. It's supported by Second Harvest. And I know that they were really excited that they were able to launch an online system where students can go on there anonymously and kind of check off the supplies that they need to get. And they can either get it during lunchtime or they can grab it after school. So check that out if you haven't seen that yet.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Ms. Campbell?
So I also want to thank Brevard Schools Foundation for a fabulous ABC Awards. I know it wasn't what we're used to, and everybody's being so creative this year. And I just want to thank them and the sponsors, all the amazing sponsors who helped make it a really special night, and that they made it where the community and the rest of the teachers and staff and family who couldn't be there could be a part and watch the live stream and all the nights leading up. So great job, team. Also, am so thankful for our principals, our administrators, and all the staff up here at ESF who helped get ready for our accreditation, which was the last week of January. And just a little story, I don't even think I got to tell you this, Dr. Mullins, but I was talking to one of our principals briefly in, I think, that Monday, Tuesday time one afternoon, and she was saying that she wasn't one of the schools that they were doing the full visit, but she was doing the short interview. And she said when she got into the conversation with the accreditation team that they said, oh, you know, we don't really have to spend too much time because we've already had so much information that's supplying us the data that we need. So it was a big compliment to everybody who had gone before. So they were very impressed. But I know that's a lot of extra work and time for people who have other jobs to do. And so congratulations, team, for having a great. I know we don't have the official results back yet, but I'm just very proud of our team and our schools for the work they did. I know, Ms. Belford, you're going to mention it, but we had the adult ed graduation, so I won't talk about all of the aspects of it, but I just was thankful to Miss Lori Benjamin. It was her first graduation to do, and I think they did a really fantastic job. And I also wanted to thank Senator Wright for attending because it meant a lot for him to recognize the work that our adult ed students have done through the year. My final one is a thank you to Ms. Cindy Lisinski, our CFO, and to the Government Community Relations team. I'm really excited. Part of our community connection, part of our strategic plan is to develop a PAFR, let me if I do this right, a popular annual financial report. Doesn't sound very fun, but actually it's going to make all these reports. If you ever look at the school board agenda and see these documents that are numbers, we're going to develop that. They're going to develop a document that many organizations have that, you know, a normal everyday citizen can look at and hopefully be able to understand the complicated finances of our school district more simply. And so I'm really excited. I got to meet with them last week, and they're just already have so many great ideas and a working partnership between those two departments, the finance department and the and government community relations, just to build a great document. So I'm really excited for what that's going to look like here at the end of the year, and I'm just really thankful for the work they're doing.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Mr. Susan?
So I did want to say, Jamal Dean, if somebody in the audience didn't know what that was, he was the player that played at Cocoa who won as part of the team for the Super Bowl. And Ms. McDougall, I'm really impressed with all of the work you're doing in the athletics. Starting to, I know that we venture into things that we didn't know we would be in when we started school board members, and I want to applaud for your work in honoring all of those athletes, because they work really hard at what they do, and I appreciate that. I did want to say thanks to Janice Kershaw and the Brevard Schools Foundation again for the ABC Awards. Many of you don't know, but 2 years ago I accidentally read the script wrong and gave every teacher on the stage $1,000, and the entire place almost fell over when I did that because only one person was supposed to get it. So this year, when she scripts everything, they made sure that I had the right script and that we put it forward, and that she did a great job. So I went to the practice ahead of time to make sure that I did it right, and I wanted to say thank you for her and her staff for what she did. Big shout out to Heather Price. Many of you don't know that name, but you should. She runs the Brevard Virtual School. And I have had, probably over the last 30 days, been contacted in conversations with many of my PTO parents, many of my Suntree parents, Viera parents, Melbourne parents. I ask them, how's the e-learning going? How's things happening? Where are you at? And some of them are in Brevard Virtual. And every single one of the ones that are in Brevard's Virtual swear by this woman. She's the principal of our Brevard Virtual School. And for many of you that don't know what that is, it's our competition against the Florida Virtual so that our students can move to an e-learning platform. She's the principal that oversees that. And if you can understand being the part of something that is so small, and then because of COVID, so many other individuals took advantage of it, and she then was swamped. And I wanted to give a shout out to her for all of her hard work, for everything that she's done, because she's taken the brunt of a lot of the kids coming in and rescheduling and websites and everything else, and done a superb job, because the individuals that are inside my district do a very good job of making sure that we do our jobs. So she gets a huge shout out there. I wanted to tell you guys, so about 2 months ago, I got requested by Suwannee County to come talk to them about our EKG policy. And many of you in the audience that aren't aware, is this school board was literally the first in the nation to put a policy together requiring athletes to get an EKG, ECG policy. And for us to be the first in something took a heavy lift. And the school board members that are sitting on your stage were in support of that. Since then, it has moved throughout the entire state. And anytime they need to present, I offer myself to go speak as the school board member for those. Today I was in Suwannee County, and I will tell you that I've never been more proud of what we do because of what they talked about us doing. They said, man, Brevard, you guys were way ahead of the curve. We're so proud you did this because now we're able to. And then on the way home, I'm driving home with Evan, the president of Who We Play For, which is the operating arm of doing the EKG tests for our student athletes. And he had phone calls coming in from South Bend, Indiana, where we talked to a family that's pushing it there. He got another call from Connecticut, where they just got a big school district. So Who We Play For has moved into an operation where instead of in most places them going in and doing the EKGs, they meet with the healthcare community that's inside each one of these towns and teach them how to do it, and then they back out. So we as a school district literally are saving the lives of kids across the country for what we did. And that is absolutely amazing. Nobody else did it. Not Texas, not anywhere, but we did. So I wanted to say congratulations to you all for going through that. I wanted to say congratulations to Wharton Smith. Many of you don't know, but Wharton Smith's one of our largest contractors. They've just decided to partner with Palm Bay High School's construction program in a big way. They're going to sponsor it with money, mentorships, and everything else, and that's going to slowly start to roll out this month. They're meeting with the principal and everybody else, and it's just going to be an amazing opportunity down there. But I do wanted to say Jonathan from Wharton Smith is phenomenal. He heads our schools foundation. He's one of the people that's there. They work with so many of our schools on so many things, and for him to take the lead on the construction program, him and Wharton Smith need to get a lot of credit for that. The last thing is that, there's two last things. I'm sorry, I'm taking a little bit of time. Today we were on a workshop, and many of you, we were speaking with students with disabilities, and one of our programs here at the county is absolutely amazing. It's called the BLAST program, and if you don't know anything about it, you should go visit it, because what those teachers and those staff do for students with disabilities is amazing. It's for students that after they graduate, to get them ready for the workforce. So some students will stay in there until they're 22 years old. Well, what ended up happening is that because I sit on the board for the Economic Development Council, many of our federal contractors in the area, because they have federal contracts, are supposed to set aside a certain percentage of jobs for each one of those contracts with people with disabilities. And some of those contractors had said to us that they are probably going to be deficient in that, and they didn't want to get audited, so what could they do? So Dr. Mullins said to get the two teams together, we may be able to pipeline our BLAST programs into some of these major defense contracting programs out there inside the county. So a big shout out to our BLAST programs and a big shout out to our organizations for everything that they're doing. And then the last thing is that we had a new consultant hired for our health insurance. And for everybody out there in the crowd, health insurance is really, really boring and not many people know about it, but it's our second largest spend in the district. We in our district spend between $70 and $80 million a year on our health insurance. And what ended up happening is I met with him and I just said, hey, I'm here to work with you. And what he said was he wanted to put together a county-wide pharmacy that would save us inwards between 10 and 20% on our pharmacy. So pull the county, pull the school board, pull the cities, all of us together and go out to bid. And it's something of a consortium model that I've spoken to over many years. And when he said it, I told him, I said, go ahead and get with Dr. Mullins, but I think Dr. Mullins would sing the praise of anybody that wanted to go do that, because that if it's going to save our district and the people and our taxpayers, we're going to go do that. So I wanted to give a shout out to Mike Meredith in Lockton, and I am fully behind his plan, and I hope he meets with you soon. And with that, I'm done. Thank you, Ms. Belford.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Dr. Mullins?
Thank you, Ms. Belford. I want to add my own appreciation and celebration, really, to the district accreditation process that we completed. I guess it was, I don't know, feels last week maybe. Folks may not understand what a big undertaking that is, because that is district-wide national accreditation as a LEA, a local education agency. So we every 5 years, we go through a rigorous review process, and it involves everything, interviewing every type of stakeholder group in the county. They did it all by Zoom this year, but they interviewed over 500 people. They visited 70 schools virtually, interviewed board members, interviewed my staff, and the exit interview or the exit meeting was, in the words of one of our staff who sits on national district review teams, was one of the most favorable exit interview feedback she's ever heard the accreditation team provide a school district. That's a credit to Brevard Public Schools. Not buildings, not desks, but people. People who commit themselves and dedicate themselves to serving our kids, serving our community on the front lines every day, living our mission statement for the benefit of students across our community. So I just wanted to give I'm confident we will continue to be accredited by the organization called Cognia, National Accreditation Institution, and give my great praise and appreciation to 3 individuals who really were the district leaders in the process. Ms. Marilyn Chappie, who is Director, Elementary Programs, Ms. Janet Stevenson, Resource Teacher for School Improvement, and Ms. Lena Weibelt, Director, Secondary Leading and Learning. They set us all up for success, did so much work behind the scenes, and just very proud of the fact that, and I hope our community as well, you continue to have a school district that is accredited by external evaluators. So I also want to echo some celebratory comments to our ABC Award winners. We heard about the Teacher of the Year, the Employee of the Year. We also have the Assistant Principal of the Year, Ms. Terry Kalaga, who spent 40 years as an educator in Brevard, served Rockledge High School, I think, for 25 years, just a real pillar in the community. Our Volunteer of the Year, Mr. Bernard Bryan, he serves as volunteer at University Park Elementary School, but really all of the schools on what we call the University Corridor in Melbourne. I've known Bernard for probably 10 plus years, and he is a staunch advocate and servant leader in the community. He leads everything from school advisory councils to robotics programs and clubs at schools, as well as just provides access to technology for kids in the community. Just a real champion for kids. Also want to acknowledge two newer categories of teachers, and that's our Rookie and Emerging Teachers of the Year. Our Rookie Teachers of the Year was Devane Clark at Cambridge Elementary, Alexandria Moorman at Jackson Middle, and Megan Fernandez at Cocoa Beach Junior Senior High. And our emerging, those are first-year teachers who have already really been pace setters in the classroom and in their school. And then emerging teachers of the year, these are second-year teachers who have already stepped into positions of leadership in their school. Katie Clark, Riviera Elementary, Sarah White, Jackson Middle, and Kelsey Decker, Palm Bay Magnet High School. Just exemplary individuals and representations of the great work that's happening in our schools across the district. Space Coast Junior Senior High, recognized by the College Board with an Advanced Placement Computer Science Principals Female Diversity Award for engaging more female students in computer science. It's awarded to schools that have over 50% or higher female representation in either of the two AP computer science courses. Only 831 schools in the United States received that award. Space Coast Junior Senior High received that. Great job to our Vipers. We just completed our one of 3 virtual science fair ceremonies. Friday evening, Saturday evening. I'm lost with everything going on, but just a huge appreciation and congratulations to our science teachers across the district, all the way from elementary through high school. We continue to be the leader in science research in the state with the investment of our teachers and our business partners across Brevard. So stay tuned. The next 2 science awards programs are coming. They're virtual, so you can attend online, watch our website and how you can connect. And thank you to Leading and Learning and our resource teachers, working with our technology department to make that possible. And finally, BPS, this is very exciting. BPS was awarded a national grant with Lockheed Martin to bring a cybersecurity Project Lead the Way program to Titusville High School this fall. This is a phenomenal opportunity for our students to expand this program to our terriers up at Titusville High School. But with that, I would give a big shout out to Shireen Lupton, one of our STEM coordinators, who wrote the grant, saw it through, and we owe to her for being the recipient of that grant. So thank you, Mrs. Buffer.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. One of the great things about going last is you guys cover the majority of the things that I have on my list, so that'll make it fairly quick. Absolutely, adult education graduation was phenomenal. Always great to hear the stories of the students, and I think it was elevated to a new level this year. So many thanks for the opportunity to be there. And the supply zone, for all that they have done. Obviously, they don't do it alone. They have many who help contribute so that they have those things to deliver. But so many books and gallons of hand sanitizer and face masks. And when I got to the schools, they were just absolutely thrilled to be able to have those things. So many thanks to them. Accreditation, I am going to touch on briefly because I think Dr. Mullins already shared quite a bit about that. But for the board members and for our public, I actually had the opportunity to participate in the exit interview with the accreditation team. And when Dr. Mullins says that it was incredibly positive, it's an understatement. Like, I have never heard an accreditation interview that went like that. It was just all very, very, and as I shared with Dr. Mullins after the exit interview, I was super proud because many of the things that we have been talking about for a couple years as real opportunities for growth in our district were things that they highlighted as strengths for us. And so absolute kudos to the team and the principals and the parents and the students and everyone that participated. But I think we would be remiss if we didn't give some kudos to Dr. Mullins as well for his leadership in really putting the right people in the right places and setting the priority and the tone for us to be able to achieve some of those things that we've been focusing on growing in. So Dr. Mullins, thank you. We appreciate that. And then the last thing that I'll share is just a quick thank you to Port Commissioner Robin Hadaway. We had a great meeting last year. I don't know if you guys remember, but we started pre-COVID the Junior Port Ambassador Program, where our schools identified students that would go out. It was like every two months that the students spent a day out at the port. They toured all the different areas out there, learned the jobs that were out there, and then were to go back to their schools and kind of be ambassadors to help spread the word about the opportunities that are right here in our community. And Commissioner Hadaway and I had a great meeting the other day. She's looking to revive that program, hoping that we will be able to have field trips in the future. And kind of laying the groundwork for that and looking at potentially expanding that as well to line up, our students with jobs. And spoke with one of our principals who was really, really excited and said, you know what, I would love to even send my guidance counselor with the students, like rotate each month, send a different guidance counselor so the counselors can learn what jobs are available out there as they're working with students on future planning as well. So we are really so incredibly fortunate to have the great relationships that we have in this community with our fellow elected officials and different government groups as well. So thanks to her for her willingness and work on that. And that is all I have. So that's going to bring us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Mullins.
Mrs. Belford and members of the board, on tonight's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, 8 consent items, 2 action items, and 1 information item. Changes made to the agenda since it was first released to the public on February 2nd, 2021 are as follows. Items A7 on administrative staff recommendations and F14 on instructional staff recommendations received revisions. A discussion item was added on legislative update. That's it.
Thank you, sir. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan and seconded by Ms. McDougall?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion? All right, then please vote.
Hang on.
Ms. McDougall's is not functioning correctly. Do you want me to
I'm
take?
gonna,
You got it?
I got it.
Okay.
Just took a minute.
User error.
And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins, will you please let us know about the administrative staff recommendations?
Yes, there are 7 persons under this category for the board to consider.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Is there any discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. That brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Mullins? Oh, sorry.
Public.
Yes. Sorry, I had a double there. All right, we are now at public comments. All public comments are in person this evening. If we already have 30 public attendees inside the boardroom, additional speakers may be waiting outside and will be escorted in at the appropriate time. Though School Board Policy 0169.1 limits to 30 minutes the portion of the meeting during which the public is invited to participate and provide public comment, the policy further provides that this time limit may be extended by a vote of the board. We have 28 speakers signed up to speak this evening. As we have more than 10 speakers signed up to provide comments, it would be my recommendation that the board vote to permit an extended period of time for tonight's public comment, increasing the regular 30 minutes to 1 hour prior to moving forward with the remainder of the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I
Move
move
to
that
approve.
we extend the public comment time to accommodate all the speakers at the same time.
Okay, so.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
We need a second.
Do 'em all.
All right, so I have a motion by Ms. Campbell to accommodate all in one session, and I have a second for Ms. McDougall. Any discussion? Voice vote? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, the motion passes. So we will take all speakers in one setting. All right, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. We have a clock in front of me to help you keep track of your time. When your time is over, you will be asked to stop and allow the next speaker his or her turn. Always keep in mind that reasonable decorum is expected at all times, and your statement should be directed to the board chairman. The chairman may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when time is up. It's personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Should an individual not observe proper etiquette, the chairman may request the individual leave the meeting. Let's all encourage an environment appropriate for our children who may be present or are watching from home. We'll begin with the first 3 speakers. Before speaking, please state your name, the organization you represent, if any, and identify the topic you will be discussing. Our first 3 will be Kim Atkinson, Cassidy Cooper, and then Jane Morgan. And if you would please approach the microphones in front of me. Ms. Atkinson?
Hello, my name is Kim Atkinson. I'm coming to you as a parent. I want to speak about an incident that happened at Mel High a couple of weeks ago. First, let me thank you all for setting policies that allow our children to go to school. And I know that you can't have a policy to fit every situation, but I want to tell you what happened to us as a family. The anger is gone, but the frustration remains. So 2 weeks ago, Carson, who's a 17-year-old at Mel High, forgot his lunch. It's only the 3rd time in 2.5 years that he's done it, so I give him a break. I was able to drop it off at the school, or time permitted that I could. When I got there, I was told that I couldn't drop off his lunch because of the new COVID rules. I was told that it was not medically or academically necessary for my son to have the lunch that he packed for himself that morning. As I was standing there, I didn't have time to argue because I needed to go to work myself. A young man came in behind me, and he was carrying a bunch of lacrosse equipment. So the attendant that I was speaking to, she said, I'm really sorry, and some other things. So I said, look, I don't have time to argue about this. Could I just leave some money for Carson so he can buy lunch? And she said, no, we can't accept anything that's not medically or academically necessary. I said, okay. I said, could you just call Carson up? And she said, if you're going to give him his lunch, he won't be permitted to take it on campus. I said, okay, could you just call Carson up because I'm going to check him out? So I checked him out and I took him to lunch. So I think the issues that we're talking about here off of the website are parents may not drop off items for student pickup that are not medically or academically required. Non-essential visitors and volunteers will not be permitted on school campuses. Okay, so I could have dropped off his school books or his homework or an inhaler, but I couldn't drop off his lunch. In the importance of a school day for my 17-year-old, lunch is important. I would say that it is academically or even medically for Carson sometimes necessary. Dr. Kirk, the principal of Mel High, assured me in an email that no student would go hungry at Mel High, which I appreciate. But what if Carson had some sort of dietary restriction and only his packed lunch would do? At that point, would I have been able to drop off his lunch? I'd like to know from each of you, does this policy make sense? Does it do what you intended for it to do? And what are your thoughts regarding how we can fix this in the future?
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Cassidy Cooper?
Hello, my name is Cassidy Cooper. I'm a junior in high school and I am 16 years old. And I am here to represent the students who you will not be hearing from tonight but feel the same way I do. I'm here because I want to ask you as a school board to reconsider the way our schools are implementing the CDC recommendations regarding indoor singing. If you allow us to sing inside, the teachers, staff, and students have shown that we can maintain the standards of social distancing and wearing masks during class. Therefore, we can promise you to follow these same guidelines for singing inside. We recognize your goal is to help us, but we are here to help you to understand how we feel it would be better to further our educational goals. We want to work together so we can reach the same goal, which is to keep us safe while we engage in our musical programs. I believe you may hear from multiple sources tonight about community theaters being able to run safely while also following safety guidelines. We believe we can do the same. Because of the fact that we are humming inside currently for school rehearsals, it is not allowing our teachers to teach regularly as they would. Therefore, our technical vocal skills are not being developed. Humming doesn't allow us to practice blending, pronunciation, sound quality, and articulation. These are basic skills that choir and theater students are supposed to be learning in class. These classes are to help us develop skills that will allow us to receive scholarship and recruiting opportunities to state universities' choral programs. Singing outdoors is not a productive substitute for singing indoors. In addition to this, rehearsing outdoors has been distracting and disruptive for both the choir classes singing outside and classes inside of the building. Transitioning to and from rehearsal space outside takes away valuable class time. And also, this can only be done if the weather permits. From my perspective, I feel as though there's inequality between the choral students and athletes and band and orchestra students because they can perform their skills while we have to hum inside instead of sing. The athletics, the band, and orchestra programs are still following CDC recommendations while reaching their educational goals. I can promise that our choral programs can do the same if you allow us to sing inside. I have learned in the past few weeks that people with different political views are coming together on this one important issue for their children and all children in Brevard County. This is where I make memories and build relationships with the people I hope to become lifelong friends with. And also in light of the concerns with mental health during this pandemic, I feel as though these classes and rehearsals have been a safe place for many students and a reliable source for support from our peers. We want you to reconsider allowing us to productively rehearse and have our concerts and shows so we can strengthen both our bonds and our mental health. I would like you to understand the choral students' frustrations about this policy on no indoor singing. For us, that means no singing, no rehearsals, no shows.
Thank you, Cassidy.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is going to be Jane Morgan. After Jane, we have Anthony Colucci, Isabella Hayes, and Jennifer Mensch.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Jane. I am not affiliated with any group. I'm a mom. I'm a grandma. And my grandson is a high school senior at Silent Beach High School, currently in the arts program. I'm here to support him. I'm here to support the arts program. To anyone who is not familiar with that program, has not had children involved in it, you may not be aware of the camaraderie, the support, the goodness that comes out of that program. Watching these kids grow, watching their self-esteem bloom, their confidence increase. I can see that from my grandson. I wouldn't trade that for any other program in the school. Everyone has their preferences. This was ours. My daughter was involved in the program as well through her high school years. It's sad to me that they've worked so hard, and he has worked his butt off, making improvements, doing the auditions, learning the choreography, learning everything there is to do with the music program in order to make the cut for the program that he is currently in. My grandson, unfortunately, just watched his grandmother pass away to COVID recently. I don't belittle any CDC guidelines that have been put in place for safety. I don't disregard that at all. I know that it is a huge concern, and I have seen the choral program perform on stage to an empty audience with masks, It was a bit cumbersome, but they managed. It is doable. Like this young lady said, it is doable, I think, and within the restrictions that are given can be accomplished. It breaks my heart that to think that my grandson's last performance on stage would have been when he sung at my mother's funeral. So I'm just asking that reconsideration is made for the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Mr. Colucci?
My name is Anthony Colucci. I'm the president of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. This school year, COVID-19 has led to unprecedented challenges for all of our staff members, from our teachers who are juggling in-person instruction with the demands of hybrid instruction, to our custodians who have the daunting task of meeting COVID-19 cleaning protocols, to our administrators who spend an inordinate amount of time on contact tracing. One thing all these dedicated employees have in common is the courage they've shown in ensuring public education continues in Brevard County. Our staff members are risking their health and the health of their family members each and every day. Already at this point in the year, 598 staff members have contracted COVID-19. Many staff members have taken nearly every precaution possible and still caught the virus. While the CDC provided thoughtful vaccination guidelines that would have placed teachers and staff near the front of the line for a vaccine, the one thing that could truly protect them, Governor DeSantis chose to push them out of line. So while other states, some of them not even back full-time brick and mortar, have vaccinated teachers and staff, our teachers and staff who've been back to work since August are not scheduled to receive a vaccine anytime soon. They are left to work in hazardous conditions. With that said, we believe that all staff should receive some form of hazard pay this year. The Department of Labor defines hazard pay as additional pay for performing hazardous duty or work involving physical hardship, work duty that causes extreme physical discomfort and distress, which is not adequately alleviated by protective devices, is deemed to impose a physical hardship. This definition aligns to the conditions in our school this year. As you are well aware of, the Brevard County Commissioners are providing our very deserving Brevard County Fire Rescue first responders with hazard pay from Federal CARES Act money. This school board has the opportunity to provide our very deserving Brevard Public School staff hazard pay from the second round of stimulus money it is scheduled to receive. While we understand that the vast majority of this funding will be used on resources for our students, using a portion of this on teachers and staff is consistent with the intent of the bill. While the governor and others can choose to do wrong by our staff, I'm here to urge this board to do right by their staff. I'd love to discuss this further and we'll be in touch with each of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colucci. Isabella Hayes.
Hello. My name is Isabel Hayes. Throughout my entire high school career,
Hang on a second. Hang on.
Yeah.
You can start in a second. He's going to.
Throughout my entire high school career, I've participated in the fine arts in addition to playing 2 sports at the same time. I have navigated both through this entire pandemic so far, and though as an athlete I've had to make sacrifices, I can tell you with full confidence, those sacrifices have been nothing compared to what the fine arts have had to lose. With a simple Google search, you can find the CDC guidelines regarding playing sports. There's 2 pages in participating and actually watching sport. And I was only able to find a Q&A on the CDC websites regarding, quote unquote, how should administrators handle music, choir, band, and performing arts classes. They recommend almost the same exact sports guidelines, reinforcing masks used by students and staff, maintaining social distancing, installing transparent shields, and eliminating shared items, along with other similar sports guidelines. Singing indoors is mentioned in a situation of rehearsing maskless and socially distanced. While there are benefits to performing outdoors in a sense of slightly more ventilation, I wonder why the arts are having to uphold these guidelines, but we choose to ignore it when indoor sporting events are taking place. While in theory we could perform outdoors, I ask myself why sports such as basketball and wrestling and volleyball were not asked to be creative and figure out a way to hold their events outdoors as well. At the November 17th, 2020 school board meeting, the fine arts were praised for their creativity and flexibility regarding performing outside. But maybe for the first time, the art kids are kind of sick of being creative. You would never ask basketball not to play on a basketball court. We have an entire theater, and we can't use it, and it's saddening. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Jennifer Mensch, followed by Jocelyn Olson, Shannon Perez, and Evan Olson.
Evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Jennifer Mensch. I'm the parent of a senior, Camille Mensch. Our students are dedicated, I'm speaking regarding the musicals and the choir program. Our students are dedicated to their crafts, be it singing, acting, playing a musical instrument, designing a set, or operating lighting and sound. Students participating in the theater program have produced musicals of such professional quality that their shows are sold out nightly. I would like to propose that we can safely produce musicals at Satellite High. I contacted a musical specialist / teacher from Orange County Public Schools to find out if they are proceeding with productions, and if so, what safety protocols are in place. For large group rehearsals, students are singing outside and online, and their performances will be held outdoors. Some Orange County schools are recording their performances or streaming productions. Other Orange County theater companies are doing mass theater and distance seating. Additionally, plays and musicals are being performed at both Titusville Playhouse and the Henniger Center in Brevard County. It is my understanding that there are allowances for shows now, and we can investigate with the licensing company if recording or streaming productions will be permitted. As a parent, I've prided myself on attending every show during the performance weekend. However, I would be willing to attend only one show so that all parents have the same opportunity to see their own child perform. I would be willing to sign a waiver of participation for my daughter, releasing the district and school of any liability were my child to contract COVID. Ticket sales can be purchased online. People can sign a waiver that they haven't traveled, experienced symptoms, or had any recent exposures to anyone with a positive COVID test. Temperatures can be checked at the door prior to admittance, and masks can be required of the audience. Limits can be placed on how many tickets a child's family or friends will be allowed. There are so many ways to produce a musical. The fact that indoor sports and cheerleading events are still being conducted with an audience in attendance and the decision to cancel the musical does not make sense. To allow athletic events, which I 100% support, but not the art events, flies in the face of logic and doesn't comport with the values espoused. There is equal, if not more, risk of contracting COVID during a sporting event or cheerleading event, and Satellite High School is a performing arts school. The reality is that COVID is here to stay. It's not going away. We have to learn to live with it, and that means participating in life. At the end of the day, each person has a choice to attend a performance or not. If someone truly feels that they are at risk, then they can choose themselves not to participate or not to attend as an audience member. The seniors will never, ever get a chance to perform with their high school classmates again. Opportunities and the valuable lessons they would gain from this experience would be lost. American schools are so much more than academics and always have been. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Mensch. Jocelyn Olson.
Hello, I'm Jocelyn Olson. I'm a freshman at Satellite High School, and I am overly a closed-off person, and I just started at high school in like a new school, and I was very excited to be in the fine arts program because that's my opportunity that I have to express myself, and whether it be in just a rehearsal for chorus class or a concert or a musical. And I understand the reason behind the no singing inside rule is safety, and it's not put there to stop us from singing or to hurt us. But my personal view is that if there can be a way to make wrestling a sport with all about contact safe inside with masks, safe. I believe I speak for, well, the art students that we will be willing to take the extra precautions needed that sports take in order to sing and put on productions. Because singing outside, film concerts, humming inside is just not the same for students, teachers, and parents and family members who look forward to seeing their child perform. And doing a showcase is better than nothing, but it isn't the same as the musical we had planning on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Shannon Perez.
Hello, I'm Shannon Perez. I did not come here intending to speak. I just wanted to be here for my beautiful and talented niece, Camille Mensch. She attends Satellite High School. She's a senior. She, along with her incredibly talented friends, you know, I really miss the goosebumps that I get watching them perform. I was a fine art major, so I'm a creative. I understand what the impact is when you can't be creative, when you're limited. These kids really, really need that. And although I might not know all of the details behind why sports are allowed to do their thing inside, I mean, let's just be real. They sweat, they breathe, just, you know, they're inside and they're having those risks. I just don't understand why these kids would not be able to do their thing on stage. Of course, it's the enrichment that their lives get from that, but also how it's affecting their future. My niece has the opportunity to be the lead, finally. She's worked years for this, and she's so dedicated, and she's finally got this opportunity. I think she has multiple opportunities to be the lead, and the impact that would make on her future in college would be incredible. And for that to be taken away over this, I think that we can all find a way to be safe and let these kids thrive at what they love best, which affects, of course, the rest of their lives and those that watch them, because I love watching them. I know my kids, we all go to the events. So thank you for your consideration, and please let them perform.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Evan Olson is next, followed by Vanessa Skipper, Kristen Manning, and Ron Bradley.
Hello, my name is Evan Olson. I am parent of two children, one at Central and one at Satellite High School right now. I'm also a product of Brevard Public Schools, and I was an athlete, so I distinctly understand that athletics are king in this area, and you can definitely see that just by the first round of remarks made by this particular committee tonight, with, you know, probably 7 or 8 references to athletics, which are great, and 1 to the arts. Also, this is a space and technology area, and so between athletics and the tech, the arts are getting left behind. So I'm imploring this particular group to make sure that we don't let that happen specifically right now. It's not too late to kind of right this particular wrong with what's going on with performing arts right now. I know that the guidelines are there. We've heard from these students tonight that have already kind of picked apart a few of those guidelines and brought some things, and that's a credit to Brevard County Public Schools as a whole, because these are the students that we're creating right now, the ones that you're hearing tonight, and they're doing a fantastic job. Nervous to come up here and present this. I think that they know deep down inside that they're going to be fine regardless of what happens here tonight, but I think it's time that we take a look at this as a group. Brevard County Public Schools has to be the advocate for these students. The Florida High School Sports Association, you know, they've got a 30-page document that's on the website on how to get athletics back in fall. We're not even talking about spring. This was last fall. They have advocates. The athletes have advocates, right? And the performing arts, there's just not a group. There's not a group, not an entity right now that has a 30-page document on how they can do and perform their craft safely. So they need you. They need us. They're here right now fighting their own battle when Honestly, it probably should have already been brought up. It's a little bit disappointing, that it has come to this now. These are academic classes. These are not extracurricular classes. These are students that are in academic classes to perform and to do this, and they need your help right now. They do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Skipper?
Good evening, Vanessa Skipper, Vice President of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. I would also like to give a shout out to my awesome colleague, Carrie Heber, on being selected as Teacher of the Year. It was a pleasure to be with her in that moment, and she is a phenomenal teacher who will represent this district very well. I'd also like to give another shout out to Jamel Dean, who I had the pleasure of teaching as an English 3 honors student. And when I asked him why he didn't want to take an AP English test, he said he had a lot on his plate with his pre-calc and calculus. So congratulations on his first Super Bowl ring. I'm here tonight to talk about hybrid education. It's not sustainable, and we need to start now to figure out what we're going to do differently next year. COVID's not going away. And as Anthony mentioned, teachers are not even being given the option to vaccinate. Our teachers are burning the candle at both ends. And as soon as I sat down in here at 5:30, I called out for comments from our teachers. I already have 50. A very important part of education is building relationships and collaboration as it's required for most jobs. While I've worked hard to include our e-learners in everything we do, it's just not the same as being there in person. I know so much more about my face-to-face learners than I do my e-learners, and it bothers me. When we do science hands-on, I have a group take the Zoom laptop with them so they can see what's happening. It's just not the same as being there. Brain research teaches us that being there experiences are the way to learn and cement learning into our brain. Don't even get me started on the technology issues and time it takes to get everything set up in the morning. That's one of about 50 comments. We can't end up in July of this year planning for August of the 2021-2022 school year. Our students deserve more, our teachers deserve more, and frankly, as much as we'd like to say we are ready with technology, we simply aren't. Here's another comment. There is no accountability on the students' end for attendance. They come and go during the school day as they please, so we end up losing valuable instructional time trying to track down students. When teachers' evaluations are based on students' test scores, and they have no way to keep track of their students, and we have an e-learning contract in place that isn't being followed, and we have students who are choosing when they want to and not want to come to school, we have a problem. Teachers are being held responsible for something that is completely out of their control. I'm an activity teacher in elementary doing both face-to-face and hybrid. While I'm making the best of the situation, it isn't sustainable. I'm constantly having to change my lessons to fit the needs of a face-to-face versus hybrid class, which means creating 2 separate lessons per grade level. I'm not allowed to sing inside per district rules, so we have to find an outside place to sing that can still have Wi-Fi so my e-learners can learn the song, but is far enough away from a classroom so we don't disturb any learning.
Thank you, Ms. Skipper.
Thank you. I look forward to working with all of you. We need to start planning right now.
Kristen Manning.
Hello. Thank you for having us here tonight. I did not come prepared to speak. I am here for my son who was not able to be here. He is a senior at Satellite High School. The reason he is at Satellite High School is because he got into their fine arts program. My son is passionate about the arts. He is passionate about singing, about theater, and about tech. If it weren't for these programs, his mental health would not be where it is right now. He has been in counseling for anxiety. This is something I don't speak about very often. My son thrives when he is on stage or when he is behind the scenes working to put on a production. The fact that our students are not allowed to use their voices in school to do what some of them were born to do is hurting them. It is hurting my son. It is hurting several others. I need to see an effort to make the arts programs as important as any sports programs. I love that the sports are still running, and I want to see that with the arts as well. I was an athlete in school. I also was in chorus. I'm a singer. I've got 4 boys. 3 of them are also very involved in sports. Another is in the band. The band at Kennedy Middle School was able to perform at Vieira High School Stadium outside and perform for the parents. I don't understand why Satellite has not been able to perform for the public or for the parents at this point. On a mental health level, it is very important, and I would very much like for you guys to consider allowing this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ron Bradley, followed by Jordan Johnson, Christina Baker, and Ashley Hall. Mr. Bradley?
Good evening, everyone. It's always good to be here, and thank the school board for all the hard work they've done in keeping everything going. I also want to thank the maintenance department for the school system to do all they have done to keep the schools going. Matt, did you weigh the pig this week?
What?
You didn't get my message?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll tell you later about it. I've got a whole lot of information at my house on schools. You'd be surprised at how many of these old schools are doing a lot better on electric bills than the new ones. You got ice storage units that's not working right. Now, I was at a car show Saturday. The guy come up, I had my mask on. He says, I know you. You was at the school board meeting. What you said makes sense. Well, I hope that what I say tonight makes some sense. I've got some information that I want to give you. It's on new schools. They're saying now it's cheaper to build up than it is out in the long run. And if anything I can do to help you out, I'll be glad. All you got to do is call me. Thank you. Who do I give this to?
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. So you don't have to step up. Yeah, give it to Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Jordan Johnson?
Hello, Jordan Johnson, representing Moms for Liberty. Enough is enough. We shouldn't be talking about this anymore. However, as Member Jenkins pointed out last time, to be silent sends the message that we are complicit, and that we are not. And Ms. Campbell, for some perspective, my great-grandfather was from the greatest generation. He gave up more than household staples in the war. He gave up his leg fighting for our freedom and our right to free speech. And on account of a single mother, I was raised by the silent generation. They taught me to always stand up for what I believe. So last month, as I sat here listening to the president of the teachers union using his 3 minutes to shame and berate us for getting involved and for standing up for our children, literally yelling into the microphone, calling liberty bizarre, and then a board member fully supports him, repeating his silencing statement, I'm sorry, that is censorship. We will not stop talking about this just because you all think we shouldn't be. I really appreciate the transparency, though. With it, you have awakened the masses, and we will certainly make everyone aware of those words next election cycle. I am actually here in an effort to work with you, not against you. I represent a large, growing group of parents who are confused and disappointed by these policies, parents who, like me, see the brokenness and frustration on all sides, teachers, staff, students, our children, tired, worn down, and weary from the if this, then that, but not this, and oh yes, that's okay, but this isn't policy making. And we will not go take it up with the CDC. I'm sorry, that's your job. This is about more than masks, for the record. I have asked repeatedly for a metric on any COVID restriction. Quarantine based on school contact. Yesterday, I finally heard from my principal. Her words were that she has quarantined thousands of students and can prove 1 or 2 were from school spread. We should be looking at that. You'll hear, obviously, you've heard tonight about another issue, and we're here to ask you to explain to us and these children why contact sports are okay but not concert. It's not okay, and we're here to ask for better for these kids. And the fact that every single band, music, and drama teacher isn't here right now fighting for their own programs, fighting for their students' right to fair play, please do not misinterpret their silence as compliant agreement. They dare not step out of line. Lastly, I'd like to take one moment to remind you all and inform everyone that the COVID vaccine is not yet FDA approved. It is still in clinical trials. You can still spread the virus. You still have to wear a mask and social distance. You can still be an asymptomatic carrier. 10% of people have experienced an adverse reaction, and there is no liability from the manufacturer. So I hope you all are paying attention to the other states that have had to close down entire school boards because so many teachers had adverse reactions. Mr. Susan, I don't think you want that to hit your health insurance plan. So while you all are spending our time and money writing letters to the governor and signing our teachers up for this miraculous, unproven, experimental injection, there are several private schools here in Brevard with small classrooms, old air conditioners, older teachers successfully having school with freedom of choice.
Thank you, Jordan.
Public
Unfortunately, your
parks are
time is up
open
this
and public
evening.
school playgrounds are closed. Playhouses are putting on
Ms. Johnson, if you would please stop speaking at this point and let the other person speak.
Something is wrong.
One more time, please step away. I just want to remind the audience before we move on, we absolutely want to hear what you have to say, but I give you some time after it starts beeping, but we need to wrap it up at that point in respect for everyone else that's here, okay? All right, Christina Baker.
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
My name is Christina Baker. I'm a mother of 2 children living in Titusville that attend Brevard County Schools. I'm here today to support the efforts of the Moms for Liberty organization, requesting that you establish metrics on rolling back COVID restrictions. This means any one of the numbers of restrictions you all have established. Tonight, we are here supporting these kids who just want to sing. It is absolutely ridiculous that we are even here talking about this, but these kids need a voice, so we are here representing our over 1,000 member community of parents to champion for these kids. You all established the restrictions prohibiting singing in schools, even masked and physically distanced, when in CDC reality guidelines is when in reality the CDC guideline is one or the other, not both. However, we have kids playing contact sports. This is inconsistency and beyond absurd and downright discriminatory. If we can have football, basketball, cheer, wrestling, etc., please explain to these kids why they can't have a concert or a musical. Local churches, playhouses are open without issue. There are ways to do this safely, and these kids are more than willing to jump through the hoops, but they continue to be shut down. It's not just the music, it's the voices, the words, and the feelings. The mental health benefits of music have been proven time and time again. Kids need to create and participate in music all year long, especially now. These kids have given up so much already. This policy must be reviewed immediately. If hundreds, if not thousands of kids can go to sports practices across the country, then these kids can go to the practice too. Performing arts should not be a sacrificial lamb so we can have sports. Let them sing.
Thanks, Christina. Ashley Hall, followed by Peter Fuscus, Vanessa Ferguson, and Cooper Lamontagne. Ashley?
Thank you. I'm Ashley Hall, Brevard Chair for Moms for Liberty. First off, I want to say, let them sing. These kids are awesome. So kids, given the responses from last month's meeting, I wanted to start by reminding you all that standing here is not easy. The parents and teachers in our movement are aware that our views are frowned upon. We are called science deniers, COVIDiots, mask holes, and many other inflammatory terms that have been born from this pandemic. We have obscenities screamed at us right outside of here, and we are told we don't care about others, or that we even wish death, or we have people even wishing death upon us. Look at the Florida Today comment. Yet, here we are standing up here, putting ourselves in the line of fire. Let me go ahead and set the record straight. We are not here because we are selfish or that we deny that there is a virus, or my personal favorite, our children are simply uncomfortable in these masks. We are here because we are witnessing the damage these policies are doing to our children's mental health. Guess what? Enough is enough. But no, we will not be silent. We will not stop talking about this. And Ms. Campbell, it is not our job to take it up with the CDC. That is your job. You're failing our children. I know you all would like for us to just go away, but look at this room right now. We're not going away. We're here to stay, and we will continue to organize and fight for our rights that you've so easily taken from us. You all took an oath to uphold our Constitution, but you are falling short of that oath by instating mandates that violate parental rights and our right to decide what is best in the best interest of our child's health, mentally, physically, and otherwise. I will end with this ruling that came from a judge in Pennsylvania, and it speaks volumes to where we sit today. Good intentions toward a laudable end are not alone enough to uphold government action against a constitutional challenge. Indeed, the greatest threats to our system of constitutional liberties may arise when the ends are laudable and the intent is good, which I do believe your intent is good. Especially in a time of emergency. In an emergency, even a vigilant public may let down its guard over its constitutional liberties only to find that liberties once relinquished are hard to recoup and that restrictions, while expedient in the face of an emergency situation, may persist long after immediate danger has passed. We are simply asking for a metric to when these mitigation measures can start to be rolled back. That is not an unreasonable request. You are not, and if you think it is, you are not the right person for this job.
Thanks, Ashley. Peter?
How you doing? Peter Fuscus from Malabar. When I signed up to speak, I was told that I had to speak, so I guess I have to speak. So, first of all, I'm a grandfather, and I have 10 grandchildren. The oldest is a freshman in college. The youngest just turned 3. A number of my grandchildren are going to be educated in Brevard County. So, one of the issues that I have is parental rights. There's a bill before your legislature, Senate Bill 582 and House Bill 241. I would appreciate it if you would read it. And if you agree with the bill, pass a resolution in support. The second thing that I'm concerned about is pay raises for the Board of Education. I think you're underpaid. When I look at the Brevard County county commissioners, the discretionary authority they have over their budget, you have greater discretionary authority. And with that should come more pay raise. I also would like to see you to have staff so that your staff can work on research, can help you present policy and ideas. And you know, you're almost a $1 billion enterprise, or perhaps you are a $1 billion enterprise. And I think that commands more help and assistance for you. Last thing I think is, I think teachers are underpaid. And I was a legislator in Connecticut for 12 years, and we passed we passed legislation that actually doubled teachers' salaries. And I would be happy to share with you how we did that and if it would fit in with your public policy positions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. Vanessa Ferguson?
Ferguson, parent of a student that also is in the fine arts program. It's not her only strong point, but it's one of her most treasured ones. And I'm a little confused as a lot of these parents. I am a registered nurse, so I understand the importance of the CDC guidelines and the need to protect our citizens and our students. But I'm a little bit befuddled that the athletic department is proceeding and moving forward, and not that I deny them that opportunity and those talents to be used and to increase their talents and the need for those things, because it does help a more balanced life for them. But music also provides many, many things. It leads to better learning. It helps with math and language skills. It also improves memory. It helps mental health by decreasing anxiety and depression. It improves response to pain. It also helps boost exercise performance and mood, and decreases fatigue. And I'm really perplexed why these children aren't allowed to do that. They are able to social distance. They are able to wear their masks. They are very, very talented. This is your school of fine arts, and you have very talented teachers, a very excellent program. It's exceptional. And these students have as much talent as those athletes, and they need the opportunity to work on their talents and their skills. And I just want to, at the end, just kind of express some quotes from others that have the ability to have higher learning, such as Albert Einstein. He said, if I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music. I see my life in terms of music. Some of these students, it might not be their profession. They might end up being STEM students or engineers. And so music does extend their education. It works in many ways than just entertainment. And I thank you for this time.
Thank you. Cooper is up next, followed by Julia, Marie, and Gabriel.
Hello, my name is Cooper Lamontagne, and I'm a student at Satellite High School. Due to COVID-19, we have been unable to perform our musical for the second year in a row, unable to perform chorus concerts for any sort of audience, inside or outside, all while taking the necessary precautions of wearing masks and having our chairs spaced 6 feet apart. I bring these precautions up because I also am involved in athletics at Satellite High School. We are able to take part in them with all the necessary precautions to be successful. I have also had a chance recently to be in a successful community theater musical production with precautions such as disinfecting all seats in the theater, fogging the theater with disinfectant, allowing only a 50% capacity audience, wearing masks during all rehearsals leading up to the performances, daily temperature checks, and audience members required to wear masks at all times. I believe that within Satellite High, if we are able to follow similar guidelines to these, we would also safely hold successful concerts or productions, etc. I am asking the school board to please reconsider their policy. Participating in the arts allows me, as well as many other students, to express themselves, to foster lifelong relationships, to create careers later in life, and to be an emotional outlet needed now more than ever. Thank you.
Thanks, Cooper. Julia? Julia Wolfenbarger?
Is this one more good? Okay. Good evening. My name is Julie Wolfenbarger, and I'm a four-year student in the Satellite Academy of Fine Art. The Brevard County School Board has been given an incredibly difficult task of creating guidelines for the safety of the students, teachers, and staff during this COVID-19 pandemic. Please note that you have our utmost respect for the hard work that you're doing. I would respectfully ask you to reconsider the guideline pertaining the indoor singing and performing. While the CDC has marked indoor singing as a higher risk, surely you can appreciate the fact that we will be safer at least 6 feet apart and wearing a mask, rather than, for example, basketball players wearing no mask and making physical contact with players from other schools as well with our school. As a four-year fine arts student, my education is being compromised by our inability to perform. Should we be given permission to perform, my classmates and I intend to follow strict COVID protocols, as we already have been. It is not our intention to create an unsafe environment in any capacity. We are only asking to be given the same consideration for an education that the athletes have been given for extracurricular activities. Also, as a graduating senior, my fellow seniors and classmates are striving to finish our high school career to the best of our ability during this pandemic. Limiting our performance ability is incredibly detrimental to our ability to obtain college scholarships in the performing arts. Please hear us as we ask for you to consider modifying the indoor performing guidelines. We are only asking for the same opportunity as the athletic teams have been given. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Marie Rogerson?
I appreciate the time. I know several of you know me personally. I know even if we don't agree on everything, that most of you ran because you care about the future of our children, right? You wanted to make a difference. Unfortunately, I also know that these podiums and now tables come with a lot of pressure. There are a lot of voices, big, powerful voices that speak to you, right? You have the health department giving you recommendations. You have senior staff who, while extremely qualified and well-intentioned, are not directly responsible to the people through an election. You have the teachers union who argues very fervently for their teacher members. But sometimes I think those large voices drown out the voices that matter most, and those are our children. And you have several of them here tonight that were speaking to you, and I hope you take them seriously. That's really was my only intention in coming tonight, was to ask you to listen to them. But I have stood outside this building for over an hour now with a group of nearly 20 children who came because they want to talk to you. And I know for a fact that behind this room right here is an additional room that opens up to this room, that if you chose, you could open the doors and still, with social distancing and all the things, allow actual access to you. And in the state of Florida and in the United States, people have a right to address their representatives and express their opinions. And I ask you what message we're sending these kids by exiling them outside where it is extremely difficult to hear, rather than making a simple accommodation so that they can see you and look in your eyes and talk to you and just be present for what's going on, because it's very difficult to hear. So I would ask that you think about maybe making better accommodations for the people that come to address you so that they can have the chance to do that and to participate. And at certain points tonight, that door has been locked, which I understand is for safety, right? But what message are we telling people? That you've come to participate in a meeting, but we're literally going to lock the door because we're so afraid of you standing out there. So please consider what you're doing to people who want to come and participate in these meetings. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Gabriel Waterman is next, followed by Vincent DeLuca, Rachel, and then Sarah. The mic's right behind you. There you go. And then face us. Perfect. Good job.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Waterman, and I'm a senior at Satellite High School. Unfortunately, I don't have much to say because I have made the last-minute decision to speak my true feelings about this circumstance. The particular reason for this circumstance is because the tensions have become so high that I feel as though if I don't speak now, the difference me and my fellow musicians wish for will not come. I have dreamed for my senior year for as long as I can remember, but because of obvious events, the ideal high school moments that I have strived to experience cannot be done. But even when times seemed darkest for me and my family, something that has always helped me remain whole was my passion for singing and music. And the fact that we are forbidden to pursue that art when other extracurricular activities are allowed is just as upsetting as it is unjust. Every passing indoor basketball game that discludes masks and social distancing is a constant reminder of where your priorities are, with who you favor. All I ask is for you to please give us the chance you have respectfully given everyone else. We are currently living in an age of despair and misery, and without our voices, the beautiful light of tomorrow we all wish to see becomes dimmer with every passing day. And the words of my favorite choir song, Earth Song, through darkness and pain and strife, I will sing, and I will be, and I will live, and I will see. Peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Gabriel Waterman. Vincent DeLuca?
Hello, my name is Vincent DeLuca. I'm a 10th grader from Satellite High. I come here today on regards of not being able to perform a musical, not being able to sing inside. This year we have not been allowed to sing inside and have not been permitted to do our musical due to COVID-19. I am an athlete and I am not here to get sports removed, but one of the biggest things to bring up is how sports are allowed to go on, but sitting inside, socially distant, wearing masks, singing is not. This seems very unjust. Singing to us is like sports to them. Another good thing to mention is that Florida is in phase 3 of reopening, which includes theaters reopening. All community theaters have reopened, and most of Florida's counties have allowed their schools to do musicals. We are prepared to execute extra safety precautions in order to have our music back. It is my second year at Satellite High School majoring in American musical theater, and I have not done a musical. It has been a dream of mine to go to college for performing arts, but not letting us do musicals will mess up my resume. Not just for me, but also for my peers. Other counties having their kids do musicals is giving their kids and students an unfair advantage for colleges due to the fact that they have a more diverse and more experience on their resume. So for the future of me and of my peers, please give us our music back.
Thank you, Vincent. Rachel? Either one, whichever one's better for you.
My name is Rachel, a student from Satellite High School who is heavily dedicated to the arts. As a musician, music is a fundamental part of my identity. It gives purpose and meaning to my life and many others. For some seniors in high school, this is their last chance to pursue their passion and their purpose. They don't have the luxury of more time in the arts. Imagine that, after this year, for a variety of reasons, they can no longer pursue their passion. This is their last chance. And even for students who have more opportunities, here in the now, music contributes so much to our livelihood. Through our voices, we add purpose and meaning to our lives. We plead that we should be allowed to sing indoors while abiding by social distancing guidelines and wearing masks. Please understand that music makes up a fundamental part of our identity. We cannot accomplish anything without your support. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Rachel. Sarah Donovan, followed by Camille Mensch, and then Melissa Christensen.
Hello and good evening. My name is Sarah Donovan. I am a junior at Satellite High School and I am currently involved in the Fine Arts program, and I've been at Satellite and the Fine Years program for 3 years now. About 6 years ago, I actually came here at the Brevard School meeting and met with my elementary school and chorus here and sang here, and it was such a great experience to meet the board and be able to tell you about my school and singing. Here I am again. It's been such a great opportunity and blessing to be a part of this program, for this has taught me so much. I've created so many memories with my beloved teachers and classmates and hope to make more. Unfortunately, it has come to my attention that you, the board, has declined the Satellite Fine Arts program to request to perform a production of Les Mis, and have taken away the privilege to sing inside. And I hope that in this speech I can ask you to revisit your decision, for my love for theater and singing in the fine arts was born through being in chorus in theater all my life. I would like to ask you a few questions regarding your decision for how our program cannot be allowed to perform the show and sing when sports and teams have been able to play this entire year. These games and practices are up close and personal, masks are not warm, and the amount of personal contact with other players is quite alarming. When we practice inside, we wear masks, socially distance, and follow the COVID-19 protocols to a T. It seems very unfair to me. The arts program is just as important to me as any sports program. We need the practice to perform and add to our resumes in order to look more appealing to colleges, and cannot afford to lose a show and concerts for the second year in a row because of COVID-19. It is not the only musical that has been canceled, but the choir concerts as well. We have been humming inside and only been able to sing outside. Singing outside is distracting, and to me, humming inside is a waste of time. I hope that you may take this request in heart and rethink your decision. I hope that you can understand why our performances are so important, and every single student in the program, and why taking it away would be a mistake. We all have worked so hard, and we want this to have the same opportunities as others. If there's anything we can do, and we would be glad to do it, and sing inside. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. Camille Mensch.
Hi, everyone. I'm Camille Mensch, and I come here asking, well, not only your respect, but also for your help. I ask for your help because not only am I standing here for the students of Satellite High School, I stand here for every fine arts student of Brevard Public Schools. Recently, we've been humming inside like everyone's told you tonight, and sorry, we're good. After hearing this, I thought to seek solutions, and I thought to ask my classmates for help, and which is why we are all here tonight asking for your help. We emailed you solutions, we emailed you precautions that we are willing to take, and unfortunately we were met with the rebuttal of, we aren't prohibiting you to have concerts, we're just prohibiting you from singing inside. A lot of students have come here and told you why that is an issue for us as fine arts kids, but also I come with you as the issue of, why are we being prohibited to do our normal routine when the normal routine of sports are absolutely continuing in the same way that they have before? Maskless, you know, sitting in the audience, eating some popcorn that you bought from the stands. As a fine arts kid myself, I have gone to find precautions. I've spoke with Dominic Del Bracco of the Henniger Theater, and he's given me precautions, and I emailed those precautions, and I was met with the same statement of, we don't prohibit concerts. And I completely understand, and I absolutely respect your opinion 100%. I apologize for anything that has offended you tonight, because honestly, we come for you with our love of theater and with our love of the fine arts. Honestly, I went entirely off script, and that's my bad. So instead, I guess I'll just say the precautions that I, along with many other students, are willing to take. Temperature is being taken as we walk inside the doors, whether or not you're an audience member or a performer. Some people have even expressed that they are willing to take COVID tests before Tech Week and our performances. Hand sanitizing breaks throughout the rehearsals, along with multiple breaks during the rehearsal to just air out the room and, reduce contact with each other. Masks on for rehearsals, and also, even if it's necessary, performances, even though most of us would prefer not to because we've only been around each other at the time. Honestly, I believe this would aid other students in, doing what we love, and we ask you as these students that we're working this hard to come here and ask for your help. And that's kind of it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Camille. And our last speaker for this evening will be Melissa Christensen.
Well, my name is Colette Cooper. Melissa couldn't make it, and I'm speaking for Miss DeLuca, Vinny's mother, who couldn't make it also, so I'm speaking on behalf of them, and I agree with her words, so we'll go with that. I write to you as a parent of a SAFA student and an SAC member of Satellite High School. While I'm very appreciative of all of the hard work and excessive considerations that were taken in account while you mapped out the reopening of our schools, I have a concern that along the way, a group of our students were not taken into consideration as much as any other group. Specifically, I believe our choral, band, and AMT students are being held at a different standard than our athletes. Prior to school opening, the BOE provided a comprehensive procedure as to what the 2020-21 school year would look like, not only for educators, but for the students and their families. As it was a hectic time for all, I took a glance at all the appreciated and all that entailed. I was very appreciative of all that was entailed of what was done. And while not happy with the current situation, knew that BPS and BOE were doing their best to make sure everyone was safe. It wasn't until recently that I read the plan closure and realized that there was a serious issue. In the plan strategy plan, slide 3, BPS strives to provide equitable support in the safe and learning environment for every student's social, emotional, and behavior development, which I believe is typically achieved. But when you get to slide 47, limitations to academic programs and extracurricular activities, I believe that the equity dissolves. To the determinant of those students in chorus and musical theater. The first sentence on the slide reads, "These guidelines will be reconsidered throughout the year based on prevailing conditions." Two of the programs specifically mentioned in bullet points are as follows. Chorus programs are other lessons are involved singing, must sing outdoors, and athletic and extracurricular activities will continue to follow to return to activity guidelines. Try as I could not find the return to activity guidelines and reopening plan, so I looked at the BBS website to find it. In consideration as a document pretty much follows the opening guidelines for the state of Florida. Sorry, I'm reading so fast, trying to get the time in, which are also based off the CDC recommendations, yet it only applies to one group of students, athletes. Why is that? I think you've heard from everyone. I'm going to skip over that sentence or paragraph. The governor's executive order on September 25th, 2020. Why haven't the choral music theaters programs of Brevard County Schools been reevaluated and allowed to phase in as athletics were? She continues to say, permits in theaters, Henniger's Coco Playhouse, they have opened to perform in front of audiences. They keep it safe. Why are these students being discriminated against and held to a different standard than our athletes?
Thank you. All right, the board wishes to thank this evening's speakers. Your willingness to speak to the board is appreciated. Anyone? Ms. Campbell is giving me a...
I'll do it.
I'll try to be brief because I know there was a lot of speakers. I believe Ms. Atkinson left. That was our very first speaker, but I do want to just reiterate that the policy on dropping off the things was not about the things that you're dropping. It was trying to limit the number of visitors on campus because of COVID. And so that's why that policy was in place. And I don't think that was clear. So hopefully she's listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuscus, for saying we need a pay raise. But I'll tell you, if that money was available, and our salaries are actually set by the legislature. But if that pay raise is available, I could think of a lot of other things that this district could do besides to pay the extra, each of us an extra something. But thank you, I appreciate that. And we have our one assistant, Pam, who is pretty incredible. And I'm sure she could use some assistance in wrangling us, but she's pretty amazing. I just want to give her some kudos. Ms. Johnson, you just addressed the vaccine. I wanted to let you know, wherever she went, there you are, that as far as lining up our teachers to get the vaccine, that is their choice. We made that available, and we would like to make that available to the people who would like it, but there are plenty who would like it. And so we want to make sure that we offer that. I disagree with Mr. Colucci in that we need to bump the older people who are at much higher risk that I mentioned in the last meeting, but we definitely, when the time comes, want to advocate for our teachers who would like it to have that opportunity as frontline workers. So, since I'm just getting all that out of the way before we talk about the arts. Many of you may or may not know that I am was a music teacher. My kids are highly involved in the arts, and I'm kind of the music voice very frequently on this board. And I do understand as a musician myself and as a parent of musicians that our chorus and music theater students have really had the rawest deal. But I also just want to be clear, and it sounds like some of the misconceptions have been cleared up because I was getting emails saying that we have canceled events, that we have not allowed students to have concerts and all that kind of thing. So I'm glad that has been cleared up, but I think there's still a little miscommunication because I will just tell you from my experience, things that I have attended myself this year in the county. I have been to a band concert in a gym. I've been to an orchestra concert in a gym. I know that our high school has done a couple of plays already and has another one that's going on, I think, this weekend. Our chorus performed at one of my daughter's schools, had a concert in December with live audience in the football stadium. It was a little cold, but they did a live concert. My other daughter's high school did a optional for those who wanted it, because not everybody is comfortable coming out. Sing-along time to the Disney Candlelight musical out in their plaza there in the middle of the school. And so performances are happening. And so I just want to be clear. I'm not, we do have the guidelines of the singing, and I just so that people know this is none of these are arbitrary. None of these are the school board just making these things up. Many of our arts programs, they're following not only the guidelines that are set by the CDC, but also by their national organizations. We have national course, ACDA, which is Choral Director Association. We have National Band Director Association, National Orchestra organizations, theater organizations, and they each have their guidelines. And one of the organizations, the studies that was done that our music teachers have been using was commissioned by the National Federation of State High School Associations. They commissioned the University of Colorado Boulder to do a study in partnership with the University of Maryland with aerosol experts and engineers and as well as musicians. And I just encourage you guys to go to that study. The next wave of that study is supposed to be updated very soon. The last update was in November the 13th. But to look at that study, because they talk about putting the masks over the bells of the instruments, what the difference is for singers, and they have recommendations. And they were some of the first people who made the recommendations back in the summer that allowed our bands to be able to perform and our singers to be able to perform. We talked about, masks and spacing and all of that, and air conditioning, ventilation systems. It's really pretty fascinating if you don't mind nerding out just a little bit. If you look at those guidelines, they're continuing to say the things that we have in place, which is only rehearsing indoors for 30 minutes, even for our bands, for 30 minutes, and then taking a break, letting air out. I will tell you that the staff has worked really hard on lots of areas to move towards yes. I think it's Ms. Moore who says that frequently. We want to get to yes. And so we have to address something that one of our speakers said, the guidelines to be reconsidered, yes, they have been reconsidered every time that reopening task force
force has met. And some of the things that have changed, even though it hasn't necessarily been obvious across the entire district yet, was we've talked about doing all county performances. We are going to be having the band MPAs. I know in March, I'm going to be going to Oak Alley High School to watch my daughter's band perform. You know, they're going to be doing their MPA, and they're going to just let the families come in. We're allowing up to 50% audiences. Like I said, we've had allowed plays and concerts, and each school can do it their own way. Yeah, there's been times I've been disappointed in some of our schools because they're not taking advantage of some of those opportunities. And whether that's the teacher or whatever their situation is, it's different. I'm not aware of. But I just want you to know our staff has reconsidered that every time. We know this is super important. But I just urge you to, just to realize nobody, even our athletes, nobody is doing business as usual in the county. So I just continue, maybe this was not what you wanted to hear, but continue to go back to your school, get creative. I know that seemed like it was a bad buzzword. Get creative, find a way. We want you guys to perform, but I'm here to say performing is happening all across the county. So, and I know that Satellite can find a way to get this done. Maybe not Les Mis, that's pretty big. I'd love to see it when it happens. I was there for Phantom. It was pretty amazing. But I know that you can find a way to get these students an opportunity to perform that they very much deserve. And I'm proud to say that that's happening in other places across the county.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Mr. Susan?
First off, I want to say, Mr. Fuskus, thank you for your time supporting the Brevard County Commission and sitting on their budget for now, I think it's 3 or 4 years. You've been going over each one of their budgets as a representative for, I think, Commissioner Smith. So thank you for your time over there. I agree with you, but I agree that we should have a stronger staff and a discretionary budget. Unfortunately, just like Ms. Campbell said, we do have to make the decisions between, what we put into the schools and stuff like that. But if that opportunity ever presented, I would definitely be there because it's something that I know Ms. Pam does a great job, but having our own staff be able to research and stuff like that also does a great job too. But she works her butt off to try to help us as much as possible, does an effective job, but there's always room for improvement if there was an opportunity in the future. Mr. Colucci, hazard pay, appreciate it. Let's look at it, see what it looks like, if it's possible. In my mind, Ms. Adkins dropping off food. I taught at Vieira High School, and if anybody's ever been there, there's 20, 30 sandwiches that get dropped off every day. And there's a lot of dietary situations that we deal with. I think there's a way we could get there with that dropping off for the food. I understand that you don't want to drop it off and leave it because our staff in the front office doesn't want to have to deal with that. But there might be an opportunity where if a parent is willing to be there when they grab it, that we might be able to drop it off. I know that that causes a lot of issues in the front, but there are some issues once in a while where those parents need to drop that food off. And being somebody who's hypoglycemic, if I don't have my food and have it the way that I get it, then I run into some situations, and if that's education's paramount, there might be an opportunity there. And again, you guys, I'm speaking as one individual, not as the rest of the board. I'm only one person, and it takes a collective vote for the board. Ms. Skipper, hybrid education sucks, all right? Yeah, it's garbage. And there's not a person in here that doesn't disagree with that. I don't think anybody in here doesn't. Dr. Mullins, I'm actually going to be putting together a series of talks where we go through each one of the pieces of hybrid education and how bad it is, because it's just killing us. And I'm right there with you. I understand what you're saying 100%. And we as a district need to do 2 things. One, not do like we did last year where we made our decisions in July for what was happening in August. I agree with you, and I think Dr. Mullins and everybody else agrees with you too. The second thing is work as hard as we can to get away from that hybrid education. So I hear you very loud, and I'm willing to work and try to get to that point. So thank you for coming and bringing that up. To the 18 speakers, look, I was a teacher, and I built stages for a lot of the performances that went on. About 4 months ago, I was arguing the same point, and I appreciate the absolute respect that you guys said that athletics is doing it, so we should too. Not athletics is doing it, so either stop them or let us. That was a great point you pointed out. I would like to, if I can get direction from the staff, to just stop talking about it, have this as a discussion point later on so that we can all discuss it, because I truly believe that there's a lot of arguments that I would like to bring forward, that I would like to try to support doing something, because I truly believe that if there is an opportunity, Ms. Campbell, in each one of these schools to do this, that every school should be offering it, because there's no reason why some schools couldn't. You guys, I appreciate you guys cheering, but let's just wait, because then that kind of gets them mad, and then we'll roll from there, all right? So, but the thing is that you guys came here respectfully. As a former teacher, watching student after student after student coming up here, and I wrote all their names down. We got to do something if you guys are that passionate, and I appreciate everybody that came tonight to try to express the situation in a positive way. And I would like to have a discussion point. Does anybody else want to further that discussion, or do you want me just to make my argument now?
Mr. Susan, I actually had reached out to Pam to make it a discussion tonight, but then I held back because I was reaching out to local theaters. So I'm with you on that.
Okay, good. Anybody else? We good?
So you don't need a majority
Okay.
to request the discussion point, but just for clarification, you want that added as a discussion point for this evening, correct? Not at a future date?
Yeah, they're all here.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
And then Ms. Robertson, I truly agree with her. If we do have people, Paul, I don't know if we need to look at this, Dr. Mullins, but if we've got people, I don't want them outside. They should be in here. We opened this up when Dr. Mullins came, or Dr. Blackburn came. We opened that one up and the backside. So we should have the opportunity to let the people who want to come discuss us, since we represent them, be in front of us when they do, having kids outside. So if we have the opportunity in the future, I would really appreciate it if we could open up those doors. She made a great point. And then, you know, a lot of the other people that have spoken tonight, I appreciate their time. So that's all. And we'll discuss this in a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Anyone else want to respond at this point?
Yes, please.
Ms. Jenkins?
Yeah. We already acknowledged Ms. Atkinson, but she asked us an explicit question: does this policy make sense? And I think the answer is yes, the policy does make sense, but it sounds like there needs to be maybe some re-education going on there, that maybe this wasn't used in the appropriate way. And I'm really sorry that she was dealing with that. So I hope we can rectify that. Absolutely. I want to acknowledge the students, the parents, the aunts, the grandparents that came from Satellite to represent all of their students. I received many of your emails, and I apologize to anyone who I have not gotten back to. There was quite a few of them. But I did go out of my way to do a ton of research on this area, and I'm glad we're talking about it in a discussion. So I'm going to save some of the things that I wanted to say at that point, but I will say a little bit about it. I know I did speak to the principal. I know that he is more than willing to put one outside. I know that's not a solution, a plausible solution for everyone here that makes everyone happy. I just want to make that clear, that he didn't cancel a show. I also want to put it out there that I did speak to the director of the Henniger Center, Mr. Dominic Del Bracco. I reached out to a couple of other theaters, but I'll talk about that later in our discussion, kind of what I've heard from them. So thank you, and you are being heard. I promise you that. So I debate whether or not to bring any more attention to this, but I feel like I should, because I feel like there is an elephant in the room that must be said. So the people who came here speaking for Moms for Liberty, I don't believe that anyone should say obscenities to you. I would never do that to you. However, I have received postcards to my personal home address from Moms for Liberty with defamatory comments on them, saying that our teachers are horrible. So practice what you preach. Another thing I want to say. if we were coming to the table and arguing for a difference of opinion, arguing for liberty, for the freedom of choice as parents, like, go for it, absolutely. But when I say enough is enough, we shouldn't be talking about this anymore, I'm going to say it again. We as an organization shouldn't be talking about this anymore when we're talking about whether or not masks are keeping people safe. I personally believe we should not be allowing the spread of disinformation. So when we come to a public comment and we continue to make points that masks are not effective, my response will be, we shouldn't be talking about this anymore. And again, there is an elephant in the room, and I debated last time saying this or not, but I'm gonna say it, and I hope the public hears me loud and clear. The person who was sitting in the seat before me is the founder of this organization, and she started it under a different name while she was still sitting on this board. So when you say elections have consequences, I argue, yes, they do, and that is why I'm sitting here right now, because I spoke to the people of my district. I knocked on over 3,000 doors myself personally, speaking to the people of our district. And that is why I am sitting here, because I am not a politician. I am not coming here and presenting my ideas on anyone. I ran an election, and yes, I did win. That happens sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't go the way people want it to go. But I'm a teacher, an educator, married to an educator who ran this race to do what was best for our students and our staff. So again, please practice what you preach, because I continue to receive your postcards at my home address. And I will say this as well, when we talk about obscenities and saying that people are wishing you dead, I listened to Ms. Deskovich say that she's fighting against evil, that we are evil. Again, practice what you preach. This is not about politics. This is about keeping people safe. And that issue is not the same as our students performing on stage, which we will talk about later. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Jenkins. All right, I certainly do appreciate all of our students, parents, and everyone coming out to speak to us tonight. That is going to move us into the consent agenda. Dr. Mullins.
There are 18 agenda items under the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any board member wish to pull any item from the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent items as presented.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. McDougall. Is there any discussion? All right, please vote.
Didn't get it. No.
Yours not coming through?
There it went. I had to refresh. I fell asleep.
All right, and the motion passes 5-0. We'll move on to the action agenda. Dr. Mullins.
Ms. Belford and members of the board, item G27 is to authorize the superintendent to advertise for a public hearing to be held March 23rd, 2021 to approve the secondary 7 through 12 English language arts textbook adoption.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Is there any discussion? Please vote. The motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
Item G28 is to authorize the superintendent to advertise for a public hearing to be held also on March 23rd, 2021, to approve the elementary K through 6 English language arts textbook adoption.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. McDougall. Is there any discussion? Please vote. The motion passes 5-0. We're now at our information item. There will be no board action taken on this item this evening. Does any board member wish to discuss? Hearing none, we will move on to our board member discussion points. Doesn't really matter to me what order we go in. I had requested that we have a brief legislative update. Do you guys want me to go ahead and do that, or do you want to?
Yeah.
I'm getting a nod. Okay. So things have gotten kind of busy up in Tallahassee, ramping up for the legislative session, which is starting in just a couple of weeks. And my first caution to everyone, and I know, Ms. Campbell, you have participated in a couple of these conversations as well and watched some of the committee meetings, but you all may have heard that the governor came out with his budget recommendation. Gosh, seems like a couple weeks ago now. I don't even know. Time's spinning. And it was very rosy. It was like he was throwing lots of money at K-12 public education. And I just want to caution all of us in leadership positions, as well as our public, because the governor's staff presented to both the House Appropriations Committee and the Senate Appropriations Committee. And we had been hearing through our lobbyists that, everyone was kind of saying the governor's lost his mind. There's no way that money is there to do the things that he's saying he's going to do. And sure enough, if you watch the House Appropriations Committee meeting or the Senate Appropriations Committee meeting, you will hear, I lost track of the number of times that the comment was made that the governor's budget is much rosier than the information that we were given from the budget forecasters. And both House and Senate have indicated that they do not have faith that the funds are there for the things that the governor has requested. Now, to be fair, the governor's budget has never really been setting the pace. The lobbyist for FSBA, who actually used to work in the governor's office, said, it's interesting because the governor's office every year goes to this great extent to put together this budget, and he takes it over to the House and the Senate, and every year when we would do that, when I worked in the governor's office, they would say, gee, thanks, we appreciate it. Just so you know, this is just a recommendation, and it has absolutely no impact on what we do in the House and the Senate. So what we have been advised is it is absolutely not going to get any better than what the governor has proposed, but the likelihood is that it's going to get significantly worse than what the governor proposed. So we still need to stay on top of all of those things, make sure that we are being frugal with the dollars that we have to spend, and keeping that in mind as we look to what's going forward. And I'm sure when we get into our budget discussions in the near future, you'll get more information on that. There are a couple of bills out there that we need to keep our eyes on. There is one that has been filed both in the House and the Senate. Excuse me. That is expanding choice significantly, and actually bringing in education debit cards, consolidating some of the existing scholarship programs, and increasing flexibility enormously. And so everyone in the state is watching that pretty closely. We had extensive conversation on that 2 weeks in a row. That one is currently just in the Senate. It's SB 48, if you want to take a look at that. We've been having lots of discussions about accountability, and as one of our legislative platforms, we have requested that we have accountability but be held harmless from negative impacts of that accountability, school grades, and those types of things. We have nothing definite on that yet. We do have two bills that have been filed. One is SB 886 by Thurston, one is HB 359 by Bartleman. Interestingly enough, for those of you who follow what goes on in Tallahassee, oftentimes the number of committee stops that a bill has is indicative of the likelihood of success on a bill. And the House bill from Bartleman is agendaed to 5 committees, which basically means they're doing all they can to kill it so it doesn't get through. So we are not optimistic that those 2 particular ones are going to get through, but there's a lot of conversation going on about accountability in Tallahassee and some of the challenges that go along with it, and at least attempts to come up with some solutions. So we anticipate that we will see something. We just don't at this point know exactly what that's going to be. Good news, the COVID liability, which has been talked about quite a bit, and that is protecting school districts as well as organizations from liability for COVID. There was some concern because there's been some contention among for-profit organizations, private business organizations. There was some concern that that was going to be stopped or that school districts would be removed. They do currently have school districts included in that liability protection for COVID. And so far, the only back and forth that has gone on with it has been some of the private company issues, and there has been 0 discussion of removing school districts. So that is a positive. There is another bill out there, SB 52, which deals with dual enrollment. And on the surface, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, because what it does is it provides funding for dual enrollment for homeschool students and private students, which is interesting because I don't know, Matt, were you on the board when they changed the dual enrollment structure where we had to pay? So it used to be that public schools didn't pay dual enrollment tuition to the colleges, and then several years ago the state made us pay that dual enrollment tuition to the colleges. We still pay dual enrollment tuition to the colleges, not at the normal rate, but we do have to pay for dual enrollment. As you all have seen, the more students we get enrolled, the more we have to pay for that. This bill would actually pay that tuition for private and homeschool students. So they wouldn't have to pay the dual enrollment tuition, but school districts still would have to pay it. Additionally, some of them could be taking courses in our high schools, but be enrolled in homeschool. So maybe they're coming in for a class or 2 classes or something along those lines. But because they are a homeschool student, they could potentially get the dual enrollment tuition funds. And they could potentially also enroll in dual enrollment through the district. So it gets super, super messy, along with the tuition debit cards that were mentioned earlier. So if you watch the FSBA emails, I think that they sent out a brief to you all on the biggest bills of concern at this moment. And we'll just have to keep our eyes out as we go forward and do our best to keep our educators educated as well, or our legislators educated as well on some of those issues. Last thing I'll say is you all have requested that we send a letter to the governor as well as our legislative delegation requesting that teachers be prioritized for vaccines in the next round. And that letter, I believe you all got copied on it. Mr. Brune and I worked together on it. Pam put the beautiful finishing touches on it, and that went out to our legislators and the governor last week, I think. So, any questions on legislative?
There was a bill that we had talked about for a couple years, and that is to allow retirees from the state. For us, it would be retired teachers to be able to come back and sub. And I know even Lori
Scott
across the street. Oh my goodness.
Scott,
thank you. Lori Scott has requested the same thing for poll workers, so that because right now retirees can't come back and work for us for 6 months or a year or something like that. I saw a bill with that on there again, and I don't know if it's been scheduled yet, but it doesn't seem to be ever making it anywhere. But I know that's not highest priority this year, but I hope that at some point we can get that across the finish line and encourage our legislators to, because it's such a benefit for us, it's a benefit for our poll workers and during election time. And
yeah, we're seeing we're seeing quite a few retirement-related bills that are coming through, and variations among them. Obviously, some of them speaking to that particular issue and flexibility, some of it speaking to who can enroll in what retirement accounts going forward. What I'm hearing at this point is that nobody is moving forward on any of the retirement stuff until they get the next update from the actuaries on the FRS system. So it looks like those are kind of stalled right now. Both houses are saying we're waiting on that info before we even committee them. Or both chambers, I should say. Yeah, sure.
If I can back that up, what's really sad is that while I was teaching, they took away the percentage for teachers for retirement and lowered it. And at the same time, they continue to do things that inhibit people from continuing education. And when you get into being a teacher, if you get dropped and you want to come back, there's the wait time and everything else. Meanwhile, all of our districts are dying for teachers, for substitutes, for everything else. And it's like we keep butting our heads up against the wall. And sometimes I just get exhausted from hearing no. And I keep kind of beating the drum of it's getting ready for a fight. And I think that has to be some kind of a loud fight, but I think we can do better advocating. And I think the superintendents can come along too, and the CFOs and everybody else. Because one of the things that I've noticed is that the School Board Association, we work our butts off, and Andrea Messina is amazing, but if we're all doing the same voices together, I watched, I think it was Latvala was presenting in front of an organization, I think it was the upper level of school districts and everything else. And I was like, there's another organization that state lawmakers are trying to get in front of that deals with education that we never talk to and collaborate with on a unified front. So I think we should start thinking in the off season about that. The other thing I was going to ask is, Dr. Mullins, we had talked before about pre-K getting a committee, right? Like some kind of a group. You think at the next board meeting we can try to get an update on where that's at? I know it's kind of running, it's not part of the legislative process, but if there's any way we can do that. And then also, you guys know that one of my big passions is the CPR and EKGs and all that stuff. So just to give you guys a heads up, there's two bills in there. There's one in the House, one in the Senate, both with CPR. The Senate does not want, the leadership does not want to add the EKG portion, which is in the House, because they're concerned about rural districts. They're trying to work through that. And I get that. Like, one of the things that I'm hearing when I go up there, sorry guys, I moved my house. I just moved in my new house. I was up till 2 in the morning. And then at 5:30, I got up to go speak in Calhoun County. So I'm working off like 3 hours of sleep here. So I'm really tired. But the EKG, one of the arguments that Senate leadership gave me was, we won't include it because it's already an opportunity. If a school board wants it, they can pass it themselves. So there's no reason to mandate giving EKGs right now as we're moving through everything. So that was a pretty strong argument. So I think that what's going to happen with that CPR bill is that it'll run and they'll strip the EKG in the House and then come back to it the next year.
They did last year, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're getting there though. We just addressed today's Littman test in Suwannee County with them was absolutely amazing. They were on board. The rural counties are on board. They just need to hear it, need to see it, and I get it. So I just want to kind of give an update on that.
One that I forgot to share with you all that we probably want to just keep our eyes on is SB 200 by Berman. That one actually speaks to parents being able to request for attention for their students. And there is some concern that that may really mess with our ability at the local level for planning, for accommodating. So if we have a lot of parents that say that they're just going to retain their student, that could have a huge impact on our ability to staff things appropriately, and as well as trends going forward, right, when we're looking down the road. So another one you might want to watch.
Ms. Belford, if I may, I don't believe you mentioned it, but there's at least, for the board's benefit, at least 3 bills. Some of them have companion that have a direct cost to school districts based on the mandatory requirements of providing additional items in every school. Not bad in of their intent. Things like bleed kits for schools, epinephrine pens, and a couple other things. Not bad, certainly don't object, except that it poses the potential of these items being required and the financial burden being being put on the district. So we're keeping an eye on those things as well, because they don't appear at this time to have funding requests tied to them. And we're certainly going to keep our lobbyists aware and engaged in those discussions as well.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. I forgot to include those. Questions, comments on the legislative?
I just wanted to, I didn't get a chance to update you guys, but I had shared with you that before I had requested that we send it as a board, that I had sent a letter myself to all of our delegates. I also reached out to all of them via phone. So I do want to say that I did speak personally to Representative Fine. He is the only representative that called me back personally himself. So I acknowledge that. I thanked him for that very much. We had about a 15, 20-minute conversation to which he promised me he would read the draft proposal of what was coming up next. He clearly stated, which I'm not saying I disagree with him by any means, it wasn't my request, but he agrees with the governor. He wants everyone over 65 first and then something to happen next. And I had just reiterated to him, my request was not to take it from anyone over the age of 65. My concern was that our staff members were not clearly outlined in the plan, and that if we could bump them to the next section, that would be great. So he said he would get back to me on that. And Senator Wright's office got back to me as well. We had a couple of back and forths, and that led finally with his office saying that they delivered the letter. And then I know that they had mass emailed all of us to say that they delivered that unified letter to the governor's office as well. So, who knows if it'll do anything, but I'm glad we took that step, and I'm glad that they're listening. So just wanted to let you guys know.
I also, thank you, Ms. Jenkins. I forgot to mention that. I also had conversation with Representative Placencia and Representative Soroy. Both are in support of the request, and we're going to look into it and see what they could find. So just forgot to put that out there. All right. Nothing else on legislative. I think we are coming to Mr. Susan's requested discussion points. So Mr. Susan, I will turn the floor to you on that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Moore, I texted you. Is there a way that you can give, there seems to be, if I can get you to come up and just explain to us what exactly is allowed at the schools, because Ms. Campbell pointed out, rightfully so, that she's attended some events, and then people here are saying that they're not, and I was wondering if you could explain that. What is possible to, like what is our outline of what we do now? Thank you.
You got them both coming.
Yeah, I figured Sullivan would come. Oh, I got money for Coco's track, by the way. I need to talk to you afterwards.
I don't know if you saw the panicked look in my eye, because my half of the equation is the return to activity or sports plan. And then we worked in collaboration with Leading and Learning to look at other activities, including dances and performances and everything else. So I'm gonna pass to Stephanie, Dr. Sullivan, and then I'll hang back here in case you need any other information.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And so our current plan allows for principals and programs to submit for review plans for alternative and available options. For example, some of the concerts that are held in stadiums, that's obviously super easy. Again, depending on instruments and the spacing, all those kinds of alternate things that Ms. Campbell mentioned are entirely allowable. And we work through them. I think the greatest challenge, just to simplify it, is the singing indoors. And I think that's certainly what the students and families have keyed in on, and we certainly know that that's a great concern. So the situation in question right now, it would be an indoor musical, and that is very difficult under the parameters that we've seen. Ms. Campbell referenced a recent study, and in that study that was really incredibly comprehensive, it talked about at most 30 minutes indoors with a triple ply mask, and then an hour of airing the facility out afterwards. And right now, that is the information that is the prevailing information in the field. I think everybody loves and supports the arts in Brevard Public Schools. I don't think there's any question about that. They run in my division. These are incredible people who do great work. Right now, as a committee and in our evaluation of the programs, the risk from singing indoors is something that has made the flexibility that they desire difficult for us to approve.
And currently we allow basketball, volleyball, and all of them to play in the gym, and we're at what is our percentage of capacity inside of a gymnasium?
The current plan allows for up to 50% while adhering to social distancing. That is the same criteria we applied for auditoriums and things like that when they were having some of those concerts and events as well. We applied the same criteria to both.
So right now, they cannot have a event in an auditorium because of the singing component of it, but and that's the pull on the situation. Is that what it is?
Yeah, they could certainly have a production in the auditorium. They can't currently, with our guidelines, have a musical that involve live singing. And so some of our, well, there's lots of plays and productions that aren't musicals.
Yeah.
So I certainly want to honor those programs as much as we want, we honor all of them, but lots of our schools don't customarily do musical production. So it just really depends on the school and the program.
Yeah, and you guys in the audience, if we can, we're going to get through some stuff here, and if we can just remain silent and not giggle and stuff like that, because what Ms. Sullivan and Ms. Moore, Dr. Mullins, and everybody have gone through is significant over the last year for what we've been trying to do. And if we can just get to the bottom of it, I think we can get somewhere. So, all right.
So some of our programs have done plays.
Yeah. And then as far as I heard mentioned the Henniger Center and Ms. Jenkins, if you would like, I've worked with the Henniger Center on multiple productions and doing some stuff. If that's an area that you've been researching, I can hand the baton to you. I thought that was, if we could talk about that component of what it is, Ms. Jenkins, if you want to.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert by any means, but Mr. Del Bracco was very, very, very kind to spend the time talking to me. He invited me down to the theater, but I wasn't able to make it, and he offered for me to come along anytime. So he was very clear about the steps that they had taken since the beginning of COVID and how things had transitioned from their performances at the beginning to what they look like now. He was also very clear about how they are a little bit less restrictive as some of the other theaters in Central Florida. He did tell me that they used to, don't quote me on this timeline here, but I believe they used to meet weekly, all of the theater directors in Central Florida, to discuss what's going on, what's working, what's not working for them. And he said they kind of spaced that out now. I did specifically ask him what their protocols were. And again, he was only speaking for Henniger, but he was able to tell me some things that were different going on, mostly in Central Florida. So, for instance, the blocking and the staging is definitely spaced out more so that they can socially distance on that stage. His productions are not wearing masks for those live performances, but he said that the majority of theaters are, but they're just not here. They are for rehearsals. There was a whole protocol for the rehearsals leading up to it, for the staging, and then for live performances. It is different because they all take COVID tests. They can mandate that. We can't do that, obviously, with our students. So that is a little factor that has to be acknowledged. The one thing that I thought was interesting, though, as well, is they have a student program that a lot of our students from Satellite participate in. And what they did for that was different was the only people who were allowed to attend in the audience were family members of those students. And they did it on I believe they did it on more than one day.
Mm-hmm.
So it at least gave the family and the friends that interaction to see their students perform live. It cut down that risk of people from outside coming in. he had a lot of interesting information about, again, what's going on in different theaters in Central Florida. The one thing that, when this came to my attention, my immediate gut reaction was to feel sympathetic and to say, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But with that being said, I feel like I'm not being honest if I don't say this other side of it all. I get why you feel like it's hypocritical, but I'm also very, very conservative and cautious when it comes to safety of our students too. So I'm not ignoring that fact either. But I kind of wanted to dig deeper into this. And so I haven't seen the study that you've talked about, but when I was digging, the only thing I saw from the CDC was something that one of our students, Isabella Hayes, mentioned, that it wasn't talking about wearing masks. So I don't know how new this study is, but I couldn't find that. And so I was curious, what is that information about singing with masks on? Because the only thing that was on that CDC website at the time was maskless, which, is logical, right? The other thing I wanted to throw out there too, it's difficult given the timeline. We're in February. I kind of wish this conversation was happening a little sooner, because things that kind of brainstorm through my mind is live, again, I know this isn't a perfect scenario, but live streaming it so that at least you can use the stage in order to do your sets. I know that the intention was to do Les Miserables, and that's not really something that would be so simple to do outside in the courtyard. But I don't really know how realistic that is. I don't know what capabilities we have to make that happen. But this was something that I wanted to bring up as a discussion, because I was having all these questions. I do sympathize. I think it's something worth talking about. But I definitely don't have the answers. So I don't know if somebody can tell me when that study was done and where it was found. Like, where do I find it?
So I'll send you guys the link. I was going to send it to Dr. Mullins earlier today as well. It's been going on since the beginning of the pandemic. So it's a long term. I can't remember that in November they were in their 6 months. So now they're been going 9 months. And so the reports basically of singing is what they were showing that singers wearing, again, like Dr. Sullivan said, a specific kind of mask, they were able to reduce the aerosols. It's an aerosol study. It's all about, different instruments and singers and how much aerosol gets produced, that they were able to reduce the amount of aerosols down to the same as if someone was just sitting there talking with a mask. And so rather than singing when you're, especially as sopranos, we're spewing aerosols all over the place when we sing. So that was basically what they were talking about. So I think in that we could look into maybe moving closer to a yes to singing indoors, but it's a study that a lot of people commission, but I don't know that it's made it to the level of official guidelines for many health departments, but it is one of the broadest studies. There's another study that's being done by the Colorado State University, which is very similar, and they talk about that. All those studies say singing with, you're talking about singing with masks, playing instruments with masks. They talk about the size of the auditoriums and the ventilation. And again, as Dr. Sullivan said, only 30 minutes at a time, and then clearing the room so that you get at least one exchange, if not 3 exchanges of air before the students enter back in or before the next class starts. And so they're pretty specific with their guidelines. It would make it very difficult to do a musical with 30 minutes of singing, unless it's a 30-minute musical. So, and I've seen Les Mis, and it's not 30 minutes. But those are some of the guidelines, and I'll send that study out so you guys can see it as well. In the November study, they said they were expecting to have the next wave of the study in December, but it's February, hasn't come out yet, so I'm continuing to watch that page, but hopefully we'll get, and they're also getting peer reviews done. University of Minnesota has done a very similar study with very similar results as well.
Can I ask a silly question, since I haven't been able to read it yet? Yeah. So is it obviously comparing this to the exact same scenario if people were speaking with masks in that setting?
So what they did was they have a computer model actually with lasers tracking the aerosol flow in a room with masks and without masks for different instruments, for singers, who's the most risk, and where the aerosols go and all of that. So What was your question?
Yeah, so I guess that's my question. So my question is the study just showing the results of
Mask versus no mask?
Mask, no mask on singers and instruments, but is it comparing it to mask, no mask of a group of people speaking in that same exact scenario?
Right. There, yes.
Right.
Yes. If you go, the different studies do different things, so you'll have to
Yeah,
go
I
ahead
have to
and take a
read
look,
it.
and it's very broad with all the instruments and the singers. But I will tell you that anecdotally, and this was very encouraging. They were saying there was a man who was the director of the National College Band Directors Association. I can't remember the initials. But he was saying that when they looked with the protocols they put in place, which are very similar to what our high schools have put in place for band specifically, that knowing they have had positive students, players, in their rehearsals. Not they didn't know they were positive at the time, but they found out that there has been no spread, no outbreaks in the band and the college band across the country with the protocols that they put in place, which just confirms, again, that what we're doing with the bell covers and the split masks and all of that and the spacing and the airing out the rooms is and I think we can say the same thing in Brevard, that it's working. So to give our students a chance to make music, and that's a lot of kids, and a lot of music across the country. So.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to ask one more question, you may not know the answer to this, but because it kind of goes along that line. Another thing I was trying to look for was, and this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, but some kind of study that was kind of assessing the effects of yelling with a mask on. And so, I've heard a lot of us reference cheerleading, and again, I'm going to be super forthcoming about my opinions on that as well. I mean, we've had a lot of quarantines happening, so I'm not advocating saying that I think it's all the safest thing in the world either. But if we're going to do comparisons there, I was curious if there is a study out there measuring that as well, right? Because you're using much more force and pressure, and that's kind of the argument they're making for the singing there with the vocal folds.
I don't know if they had yelling in particular, but they did include theater.
Yeah.
Just like theater
Projecting.
talking.
And then one more thing before I forget. I did specifically ask him about their amount of positive cases that they had in their productions and if they felt like that was happening a lot along all of Central Florida theaters that have been running. And he told me that they have not had any. They had one scare and it was a contact at home and it ended up not even being positive. And they shut down the program for 2 weeks just in case. And he said that I mean, granted, this is, how many people removed from this conversation, but it's not like it was this big spread happening in Central Florida either. So all of these things are the reasons why I felt like it warrants at least a discussion to have.
Okay. How long does it take to put together a production from beginning to end? I can't remember. They always used to just call me with about 3 weeks left and ask me to build all the sets. So,
I believe they start casting in February, I believe.
and that is for a May production? So you're talking 60 days or 90 days? Yeah. Miss Mensch. Okay. And then I just a couple of things that I wrestled with when this came forward. One, the comparison between athletics and this, and to me it is absolutely as a former coach and a person that worked with a lot of the arts, is that I do see a discrepancy in the fact of us not letting the arts do some of the things that they're doing, but yet the sports. And let me explain. Do we clear the basketball games or the volleyball games every 30 minutes? Do we do that? Okay. The gym in many of our schools is actually smaller than the auditoriums that we actually have per square footage. I would make an argument, especially Satellites. Satellites gym is old, small, and their auditorium's huge, right? I would make an argument that the two.
We do not disagree with the concern in our indoor sports.
No, I agree.
We share the concerns that have been brought up.
Absolutely. But gym versus I'm trying to methodically walk through the decision-making that goes on. So square footage-wise, it's the same, if not better. Currently, we have people that are inside of our sports that are not being held back for the 30 minutes and coming off. And then all those things, yelling, singing, all of that happens in sports. So every one of the individuals that is on the side of the football game, or, and that's outdoors, I know, but in volleyball and basketball and everything else, those people are all inside there, and they're going the whole time. I personally feel for the mental health and the other things that go on. So when we look at making a decision on whether we are going to do something or not, this district has done everything they can to try to get there. I want you to know that. There's no hidden secret that everybody's saying we don't like the things. They're trying so hard to get this to happen. And what I'm trying to do is try to make an argument to let this thing happen through walking this process through. But there's a lot of abnormalities. And I think I'm hearing some of my board members say that there's an opportunity, if we went back and researched some of this stuff, that you guys might want to come back at the next board meeting and try to talk more in depth and have more of an educated background on what we're saying. Am I hearing that from you, Ms. Campbell?
No, because we talked about doing a musical or doing an hour-long indoor concert is different from allowing singers to rehearse inside a room during the class period with masks on. Waiting for the next round of the study to come out, that's where they were starting to lean, that, singers with masks could possibly be safe in a room, 30 minutes rehearsal, singing with a mask on, which is super not fun. But because our students have said they're willing to do it. Doing a musical is a whole different ball game because, and the difference between, the sports thing has come up many times. We're talking about aerosols. That's the whole thing about the singing is the aerosols, and so that happens with singing more than just sitting here talking, more than sitting here just breathing. That is the concern, just based on the study that happens when people are playing instruments, when they're singing, when they're projecting, those kinds of things. The louder you are, the higher it is. All those things have to do with it. So I don't know. I would just say again, we've got so many opportunities to perform. It may not be in the way that it always is, or the way everybody wants to, but there are so many opportunities to perform. I think I just would encourage schools to explore those opportunities, and maybe again, pending this next wave of the study coming out. I don't know when it's going to come out, or we can take a look at the last one that was posted in November. Maybe revisiting the indoor singing. I sure am glad we're in Florida because honestly, I don't know what these schools up north are doing in the wintertime.
They're all closed.
Yeah, well, right. They're not open, so I guess I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, it's a whole different ball game to talk about an indoor performance of that length.
Can you, and I don't mean to keep asking you this, but, and maybe I do, I just don't understand the difference between a couple of kids running around in a gym with a whole full of people for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, than an auditorium full of people that are watching some kids on the stage.
Yeah.
Can you give me that?
Well, this is just, just some of my research and reading. I know, for example, the NFL, of course they're outdoors, but NFL put proximity sensors on all their players on some of their teams for a while just to see. And actually, in a ball game, NBA would say kind of the same thing, that the CDC guidelines is 15 minutes of cumulative proximity, but less than 6 feet. In those games, a whole entire games, 2 players don't come into that. Wrestling would be an exception, but don't come into contact within the 6 feet radius. So those are some things that have come up with the sports. I think again we need to look at, is there a way to get to yes, but the yes is not necessarily going to be doing it like it's always been done.
No, I would argue that NFL is, I wouldn't even look at that study, because if anybody knows offensive and defensive line and everything else, those guys are running stunts and they are all over each other all day long. There's no in between there. They're within 12 feet of each, 12 people within 5 or 6 plays. Anyways, let me get back to it. Here's my argument, and I'll just be blunt. If we're going to do it for the athletics, under the circumstances of square footage, air ventilation, our gyms are the oldest air ventilations in our county. Our auditoriums are all upgraded since then. Look at Satellite, look at O'Galley, look at some of our schools that have these old gyms where we're playing this basketball, and we've said it's clear for you guys to get there. And then you look at those exact auditoriums. Heck, we had our ABC awards inside of an auditorium recently. And I just, between all of us, I can't sit here consciously and say to a group of kids, look, you can't do what we did, or you can't do what the athletics do. And if there's a way to get there, I'd like to try to get there. But let me just get straight here. For the concrete floor right now, an individual.
Mr. Susan, if I could just clarify, we are permitting plays to perform in our auditoriums, not musicals.
Right.
We currently have plays that have performed in our auditoriums. So,
Absolutely. So musicals, I'm sorry.
So it's restricted to musicals because our plan clearly outlines that singing is not permitted indoors at this time.
Sure. And I appreciate that.
I just wanted to clarify the ABC Awards. There was no singing at the ABC Awards.
Oh, okay.
So yes,
You're right.
we used the auditorium, but it was in every same capacity as our music performances did, and it was well below even a 50% capacity. I believe it was more like 20 or 25% capacity in the auditorium. So I just don't want there to be any confusion that there's any kind of double standard.
You're
We
right.
adhere to
Thank
all
you
of
for-
those things in the auditorium that we are requesting and requiring our schools to hold themselves accountable to.
Absolutely. So getting back to the gym versus the auditorium size, are we not allowing our singing classes to go into the auditorium to practice since there's more room? We're not letting that happen?
No singing in.
They're all practicing outside.
Okay. All right. But we are allowing performances inside of the gymnasium if they apply correctly a plan, but there's no singing in those performances, right? So all singing has to be done outside. Okay. I obviously that doesn't seem like there's enough of a push right now for you guys to come across the finish line to allow some singing indoors. I would like the opportunity to go back and research this because I think that there's more to this that we might be able to look at. And I might be completely wrong, but I think I would like to make it a discussion point for the next board meeting. But at the same time, I'd like to research it and then come back. Are we back in 2 or 3 weeks, Pam? Do you know? 2 weeks. And I don't know if that gives us enough time to do the auditions, to do all the stuff and everything else, because we don't want to back into kids taking tests at the same time as trying to put together a production. But I think that I think there's an opportunity there. So with that, I'd like to come back if there's other board members that don't mind. The other piece is that what Dr. Mullins, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, maybe this comes back in 2 weeks, is there an opportunity for our schools to perform these at another location like the Henniger Center or something like that, or are we saying no to that? Under their guidelines, under a different, I think that's where you were going.
Our
Ms.
reopening
Jenkins.
guidelines do not permit our students to sing indoors.
So in our schools,
To sing indoors,
in our schools.
correct.
Okay, so a school might be able to, just like an AAU event with the schools, they might be able to go perform as a school, but not under the same restrictions as a school, right?
I think you're opening up a really dangerous can of worms there, Mr. Susan. We're not allowing our students to do field trips, but we're going to say that our students can go
No.
to a local theater and sing indoors against.
No, I don't think we
like they're-
should.
If
I don't-
it's, if they're functioning as a school group, we still have the liability as an organization. So I respect that you're trying to get there and trying to find some way to work around it, but I just am concerned at
No,
where
I
that
agree.
goes.
I didn't want you to think in any ways that I would say that a school like Satellite should go to Henniger Center as a school like Satellite. Mr. Cooper Lamont said that they're all at the other playhouses working together already. And I know that for a fact. I've got some close student, family friends who have students that are in the arts that they work in the Cocoa Village Playhouse and everything else. So I think what I would like to do is go research this and come back and discuss it at the next board meeting, which gives us 2 weeks to be educated, gives us some time to meet with Dr. Mullins and figure out exactly if there's something we can do to change this. But I think for the mental health, for the opportunities that we have in front of us, for the things that these kids want to do and let it sing, I'll tell you, whether it's a football game, whether it's a play, whether it's anything, there's just something beautiful about the passion in a student who wants to perform, whether that's sports, whether that's anything. I think our district has worked really hard to get to a point where we can say yes. And I think that there might be an opportunity for us to help this out a little bit more. And I would appreciate any of the other board members if we could research and come back to it. That's all.
I'll send this study to everybody by tomorrow.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. And I think we're always researching and reading the, the information that's coming out around this. So I'm assuming that no board member has a concern with.
No. Can I ask Dr. Sullivan a question? I'm sorry to put you on the spot again.
Don't make her
I saw
walk
you
all the
walking
way
away,
up.
and I was going to say, don't leave. But so my question to you is, what I was told and advised was this decision was made based off of CDC guidelines, which I clearly saw myself, and I understand. But now I'm hearing about this other study. So was this other study taken into consideration from the get-go as well? It's not just CDC guidelines?
Yeah, we've been monitoring. I got to this survey via the state organization and their connection to it. So starting with FMEA and moving forward, we've had teachers having leadership groups and meetings reviewing the guidelines. They were a part of our initial guidelines. We went to the experts. And so in creating the initial plan, everything available was reviewed at the time.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to clarify. And Mr. Susan, so you were right originally when I was approached with this topic. My brain went straight there. Let's work with our local theaters and make this happen. But realistically, some of our high school theaters are just as large as those theaters. And I'm sure they would love to be really helpful anyway, but they have their own productions going on and stage for the rest of this year. So it'd probably be really, really difficult to have time for them to rehearse and to block and to stage and to use that theater anyway. So just so you know that. But I would like to come back and do some research as well, just especially because this is new to me. I'd like to read about it as well. I'm more along with Ms. Campbell. I probably don't see realistically this moving to musical theaters happening inside, but if at the very least we can modify slightly enough to make our students' experience a little bit better, a little bit more close to normal, practicing in some of those chorus rooms at least. I mean, some of those chorus rooms have risers and they're large, and it's just seems kind of senseless that we can't, I know wearing a mask and singing isn't the best, but it's better than being outside.
I think what caught me was one of the students said, this is my second year of not having a production. And we all know that no matter how hard we think about it, this thing may be around another year. And if that's the case, I don't want to go into a third year telling kids no. And I just being in those classrooms, being with those kids, knowing what it means to them, I just think that with a room full of people, it owes us to at least look at every option, reevaluate, and come back to the table and talk about it. I think that's what we do. So I wanted to say thank you guys for taking a second. Sorry to hold us up after all those speeches, but I look forward to 2 weeks from now.
Anything else? Dr. Mullins, do you have anything for us this evening?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Hearing nothing further, this meeting is adjourned. Have a great night.